75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot.
It is balmy on this Wednesday morning. Thank you for spending this hump day with us. This is the wake-up call. Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, and Mark Dykton from the DriveHubler.com studio downtown, starting to transform into the Royal Rumble Center that it will be come Saturday night. The street signs are going up. We have the airport signage going up. Mark Dykton is a very happy individual. I almost expected Mark to be volunteering, driving these wrestlers around.
We should. That'd be good. I think you would like that.
Where do you need to go, Mr. Cena? I'm right on it.
You mentioned it was balmy yesterday. It was 47 degrees. Almost got the kiddie pool out.
I mean, literally.
Yeah, just laid outside for a few minutes. I think today, finally, the snow will evaporate. Am I
wanted
wrong
to
with that?
Jump in the puddles with how much it was melting.
I walked the dogs yesterday and wasn't freezing my you-know-what off. It felt good.
And the Pacers are back in action tonight. It feels like they haven't played in quite a while. In reality, it was Saturday in Paris, last Thursday in Paris. We haven't seen them inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse in about a week and a half. And very fittingly, WWE night brings the Detroit Pistons into town. And this game has sparked a little bit of, I would say, upper intensity here this season. 3 times these two teams have played, all road wins for these teams. The Pacers are 5.5-point favorite tonight, and Andrew Nembhard is questionable with a back injury. Has he done too much wrestling in the last few days?
You think there's too much time laying on a plane? Is that what he did, sitting on a plane for 20-some hours, when you go over to Paris and back? Maybe that was the case. So, good morning to you, fellas. Hope everything is well on this Wednesday. We'll have Tony East. He'll join us as well. Jol Erikson, he'll join us in the 9 o'clock hour today. Plus, Mark, I don't know if you want to keep it under wraps. It's our next installment, our third installment of teaching Kevin Bowen a little bit about professional wrestling. Uh-huh. Now, they do have the Tyrese Halliburton bobblehead tonight, right? You still have the paper over there. Yep. I still have not seen one. I think we only had one. I think JMV took it.
Yeah, bobblehead looks awesome. Yeah, Halliburton with the championship belt around the right shoulder here. He said yesterday he will, and I don't think this was shocking news to anybody, he will be making an appearance inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
I'm sure he will.
Coming up on Saturday night. Are we going to get Caitlin Clark involved at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I had not thought of that. Is that her thing? Or is it just because she's an Indianapolis celebrity? Or she's just a celebrity, not just an Indianapolis celebrity? You tell me.
I can see her being on camera at some point. I don't think she's getting in the ring.
You know what? I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say she's not going to be front and center for the festivities this weekend.
I can kind of see
I have
Caitlin.
Nothing to put that on.
I can kind of see Caitlin Clark liking it.
Oh, yeah? Why? Because she's from Iowa?
I don't know.
There's nothing to do in Iowa.
Well, I mean, isn't Iowa kind of like the wrestling hotbed? Don't they get 10,000 people at a dual meet between Iowa and Wisconsin or something?
Oh, but that's
real wrestling?
Yeah,
is what you're about to say?
Mark,
oh, no.
That's
Mark,
lane wrestling.
Yeah, Mark, close your ears. That's real wrestling.
Oh,
yeah.
Andy Sweeney. There goes any chance we had of getting a wrestler in studio.
I can't think of anything I'd be further than. I remember the wrestlers in high school having to cut weight and everything?
Oh, my gosh.
Remember that? Just sweat out all the weight?
Wearing 3 hooded sweatshirts at lunch.
Yeah. It's why don't you go out for the wrestling team? Yeah, these guys are being tortured. Why don't I not go out for the wrestling team? How does that sound?
And my buddy Frank was on the team, and I just remember every lunch he'd be sweating. I'm like, why would you sign up for this?
Right, you're eating donuts and school pizza and chicken patties and everything else. He's sweating
I'll take
it
more
out.
Bosco sticks.
All I remember is Evansville Modern Day was unreal at wrestling. That's all I recall from back in the day.
To hell with Iowa. Maybe it's Evansville. That's
maybe
the
it is. Maybe it's the Pocket
high
City.
school wrestling.
Tony East coming up at 8:30. We're 8 days away from the NBA trade deadline, and I don't know. I feel like the tune has changed a little bit, but maybe you have a different opinion.
Well,
on that,
it's
in regards to maybe our afternoon host's favorite player.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think coming up at 7:35, I don't think it's crazy. So I'm listening to a podcast on a couple Lakers guys. And I know you're thinking, why are you doing
is your
this?
Life there?
Well, I have nothing to do. The Lakers lost again last night. The reason I bring it up, and they're not the only team. I want to be clear. Is, Anthony Davis is injured, and, Miles Turner is in this odd spot, and I know you guys have heard, and I know you knuckleheads have done this show quite a few times over the last however many years with Miles Turner, but you're in this odd spot if you're the Pacers that you're good. We can admit that they're good, and they've definitely rebounded. I mean, right now you're right there, 4th, 5th seed. For the playoffs, and you feel like you are a top 6 seed, and that matters. If you were an 8 seed or a 9 seed, 10 seed, this would be a different conversation. But I texted you last night that I think there's meat on the bone because Miles Turner is a wanted man, and I think by several teams, potentially even including the LA Lakers. And then on top of it, there is a decision that will be made here around the trade deadline. It may not be the final decision. If they keep Miles Turner, they'll obviously have a chance to go sign him in the offseason. But, this is a guy that's going to command probably upwards of $30 million in the open market or very close to that. And if you're the Pacers, is that something you want to do? And I don't know the answer. The answer might be Andy. Of course it is. And they give him a contract and we move on. And basically the core of this team with Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam and Turner and Nembhard. And we think of some, and they would still have pieces. If you wanted to make a move, you would still have Neesmith and you would still have Toppin. And obviously Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin are players that other teams would covet to some extent. But Turner is a premium position that there's just not a lot of them, and he can step back and hit a 3, and he can block shots, and he can, grab you 6, 7, 8 rebounds a game. So I'm very interested. The decision they make in the short term, this year, what they think this year, if we're going to ride it out, we'll take this group into the playoffs, and they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. And then also, and this is kind of how it's been the last year or so for the Pacers, there's the present, what you're doing now, and it's pretty good, and I think they could have a very nice record come the end of the season. And then there's the future as well. You feel like this franchise has one more move in them, right? Don't you feel that way? Besides the Tyrese Halliburton Supermax and what they gave Siakam in the offseason. So I want to dive. I think there's meat on the bone. I want to dive into that at 7:30, and we'll ask Tony East coming up at 8:30 about that as well.
So again, 7 o'clock tonight, Pacers and Pistons. It'll be a 5 o'clock tip on Saturday, earlier start time due to Royal Rumble. That'll be Pacers and Hawks. They will head out west, and as they are out west, that's when the trade deadline will occur. Again, coming up a week from tomorrow. We'll find out tomorrow night if Pascal Siakam and or Tyrese Halliburton will be an all-star reserve. Nobody named starter, which is of no shock. Last week or 2 weeks ago when that was announced. I did see in the Rising Stars game, shout out to Zach Edey on the rookie team and Trace Jackson-Davis on the sophomore team. Remember, with the new all-star format this year, I know everyone is on the edge of their seat looking forward to this. The winner of that Rising Stars game will play against the actual all-stars.
Right.
They're going to divide up
That's pretty cool.
24 all-stars into 3 8-person teams. And then the 4th team will be the winner of the Rising Stars game. So, I mean, you could get Zach Edey against Nikola Jokic or whatever. Trace Jackson-Davis against Jokic here coming up in a few weeks. So, again, that will be announced tomorrow.
How many people know that that's the format the NBA is doing for the All-Star Weekend?
I think it's the second time I've said it on the show, and I forgot about it until yesterday.
I forgot about it until 30 seconds ago that that's what they were doing. I bet not 2% of our audience knows that that's what they're going to do. And the only bad thing in a couple weeks about the NBA All-Star Game, by the way, where is the All-Star Game?
I'm pretty sure it's San Francisco. I'm pretty sure it's at the Warriors Arena.
Yeah, the new spot there is we get to do how to save – national radio gets to do how to save the dunk contest at the NBA All-Star Weekend.
Mac
Cannot wait.
McClung in it every year, right?
I mean, he's been here 4 years in a row.
He's a 7-time defending champ at this point.
If he doesn't even, he's like, remember Craig Hodges back in the day when the Bulls let him go? Is that a musty reference? Come on, we're basketball people around here.
No, he's always like the first highlight they show when they're introducing the dunk contest.
Remember he didn't have a team, he just wore an NBA jersey?
Now, last year, we had it here inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and remember, the Pacers trio won the skills competition.
Yes, they did. Well, Benedict Mathurin had a great weekend.
Was it Mathurin, Turner, Halliburton? Mm-hmm. That was the trio?
Yeah.
And then you had Sabrina Ionescu against Steph Curry.
Steph Curry had to turn it up at the end to win. He was going to lose. Sabrina was going to beat him.
By the way,
that was going to be the conversation.
I'm going to throw a Tony East question his way, fever-related. I feel like the WNBA has had some wild trades in the last 5 days.
Well, I saw Brittany Griner signed as a free agent in Atlanta. I don't know, it's a 1-year deal, but that's not a trade.
I want to say, like, of the 12 Olympians they had, like, 4 of them have been moved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like,
I saw Vegas make a move.
That's a notable thing.
And
I'm
it's not
like,
like they have 32 teams.
And I'm like, are the Fever going to do anything? Or is it just like they're bringing back Kelsey Mitchell? And
Well, we're the team running back city.
We are the city running back, are we
the
not?
City of running. I'm not going to get on them like I am maybe Chris Ballard for running it back, but we are basically the team running back
Which,
city.
again, they've
so
got
right.
all the new faces. You know, they've got the new president, the new GM, and the new head coach. So Tony East, 8:30. Jol Erikson at 9. Colts down at the Senior Bowl right now. Shane Steichen, that scouting department, coaching staff, several coaches coaching in the game. I want to say last year 3 guys they drafted from the Senior Bowl: Latu, Tanner Bortolini, and then Jalen Simpson. Again, they have been a team that has certainly spent many draft picks on Senior Bowl guys over the years. I would say average draft class probably has 3 to 4 drafted players from the Senior Bowl. So that will be something that'll probably come across your radar here this week.
Yeah, the importance of the Senior Bowl, I feel like in the last 5 years has skyrocketed. Am I wrong there? I don't know. I guess I just feel that way. It's such a close evaluation that you get. Have you ever been to that? Would you like to go?
No,
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah,
you never made your way down to Mobile, Alabama?
No, it's
the Holiday Inn Express?
Yeah, it's never really been like a big Colts media thing. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Hell, maybe Joel's there. I wouldn't think he is, but yeah, I know a lot of people that do go. I mean, like, for example, Tennessee's contingent is pretty heavy down there right now. Brian Callahan was talking yesterday. Obviously, when you have the number 1 overall pick, it's a little bit different there. But, you know, the one thing about the Senior Bowl is it's a lot of guys drafted like 30 to 100. It's not a lot of guys drafted in the first 30 picks. So it's like, you know, predicting
it's a good point.
Guys 30 to 100, you know, if I cared about the draft that much, you know, I'd be living alone.
Well,
so I probably just got to draw a line in the sand a little bit.
I think you secretly do care about the draft that much. You just don't want to. You just don't want to say it because you want to live with a woman. Is what you're saying.
Not enough to find a connecting flight to Mobile, Alabama.
I did. Well, you could drive down there. You know, it's probably a nice 8-9 hour drive. You can pop a couple Notre Dame basketball podcasts.
Hey, good win
on.
last night for the Irish.
Speaking
Gutty.
of, okay, so I had
pretty.
I had no idea that Georgia Tech and Notre Dame were playing ACC basketball last night. Okay, and congratulations to you and Micah Shrewsbury on the win. I did see on SportsCenter, but then I tried to rewind, but it already moved on to the next program, so I couldn't go back on YouTube TV. What did Shrewsbury read to the media? Did you see this?
Yes.
He read. Was it mean tweets that he received or mean texts that he received during the game?
He got a text from an unknown number. It was not me.
Oh, okay.
To be very clear, not that he has my number saved, but
right, well,
this was not me. But yes, he read a text that he got from an unknown number. He said he thought it was around like 10:30-ish last night, which again, they were a 9 o'clock tip time. They were down 7 with 5 minutes to go.
Okay, so that's when it came then. It was later second half.
And, you know, whatever. I forget the exact language of the text, but the text was, you know, ripping the team's performance, et cetera, and then Marcus Burton
great.
Put him on his back, and Notre Dame was able to get a win. That's 3 of 4 since Greg Rakestraw and I walked into the building.
Well, I mean, that's all it took was the walking taco. What did you guys get? You guys get the Woodford? What's the drink you guys?
Yeah,
not the Manhattan. What
couple old fashions, espresso martini before the game. Nothing of alcohol served inside of Purcell Pavilion. 10 hours and 30 minutes from here to Mobile.
Oh boy, that sounds like the worst drive you could make. If I'm going to drive 10 hours, I'm going to go to New Orleans or something. I'm going to go to a beach.
Boy, it is kind of close to New Orleans when you look at it on a map.
Far. It's not too bad down there. So, yeah, you should go down there. We'll do a show. Mark, we're going to do a remote next year. We'll do it in Mobile,
Let's do it.
Alabama.
I've got to get off my lawn. Comment in a positive development, I think. I think we all could agree on this, so I want to make sure we share that. And, again, we are 2 days away from our first Indiana-Purdue matchup of the season here coming up. This is Friday night inside of Mackey Arena.
All right, coming up on the other side, Butler in action last night, Notre Dame as well. Pacers tonight, your morning check down. It's coming up next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Wednesday. Wake up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum March 10th and 11th.
Should Miles Turner be on the move? That might wake up JMV early on this Wednesday morning. Andy Sweeney's got some thoughts on that he will share upcoming. But as we lead off a morning checkdown, we go to really the same old story for the Butler Bulldogs all season long.
Yeah, it's not good now. Just 2-8 in conference play. Losers yesterday. Now, I mean, DeMarquette's a good team. They're a top 10 team, 78-69. That's their final in Hinkle last night. I mean, Butler led this game at halftime, KB, by 7, 42-35. Lopsided, outscored by 16, 43-27 in the second half. You had Stevie Mitchell. I don't know how much you've seen of Marquette. Their backcourt's really good. Obviously, they're going to end up being like a 2 seed or something in the tournament. He had a career high 22 points. Telfort 24 points in the loss for Butler. Not good there. And as we mentioned, I'm sure you were up late last night listening to all the podcasts and the post-game shows. Notre Dame 71-68 over Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I will say this about Butler. That might have been their best half of the season. The first half, Cam Jones gets 4 fouls somewhat early in the second half. And it's like, oh, man, what an opportunity on your home floor. They don't get it done. I'd say the highlight in Hinkle last night was someone sent me Chris Denary during a timeout doing the layup, free throw, and three-pointer.
Oh, boy. I had no
Jump
idea
shot
that happened.
Was as wet as the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay. So
just ripping nets.
So he made the free throw. Mm-hmm. What about the three?
Made the layup, made the free throw, clock's running down, three-pointer. I think he just moved maybe a slightly over from the top of the key.
Gotcha. So we're kind of being nice to Denary. He missed the three?
No, he made it.
He made the three. Okay.
Yeah. Andrew Nemhart against the Knicks, game 3 style.
Did he at least get one shot at the half quarter?
He did the 3 in the veins afterwards.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I got to see this video.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I might be lying about the last part, but he made all the shots.
Good for him.
No shock there from my former coach. So Butler loses last night 78-69. Inside of Cambridge Fieldhouse tonight, Chris and Ariel will be on the call. Pacers favored by a handful. We'll see about Andrew Nemhard. Back injury. That's something he did battle a little bit early last season. Again, this one has been, I would say, a bit chippy here, and it's not like we're getting the Benedict Mather and Jaden Ivey chippiness from the Rising Stars game last year. Unfortunately, Jaden Ivey is out with that fibula injury. Again, Pacers and Pistons so far. All the road teams have won the first 3 matchups this season. So that'll be inside of Cambridge Fieldhouse tonight, 7 o'clock tip.
Yeah, you mentioned Rising Stars game. Trace Jackson Davis will be in that in a couple weeks. Zach Edey as well. I haven't seen, this is my fault, I haven't seen as much Zach Edey as I would have liked in his rookie campaign.
Quieted down a little bit here as of late, correct?
He doesn't start as much. Some of the games I have seen, he hasn't been starting.
Seems like Khalil Ware's rookie season is rising a bit. Zach Edey's is going down a little
I think that's probably fair. One WNBA note, Brittany Griner signs a 1-year deal with the Atlanta Dream. I mean, it's a sizable move, is it not? I don't know.
A couple sizable moves in the WNBA here. Tony East will join us. We'll throw a fever question his way. Chuck Pagano back in the NFL, man that we have had on the show a couple times here each of the last few years. He is rejoining John Harbaugh's staff in Baltimore. Officially, he is a senior secondary coach. I remember the Colts a few years ago had John Fox in a similar role.
I remember.
64 years old for Chuck. Again, he got a start in the NFL with John Harbaugh's staff 17 years ago. That was a wild final season for them in Baltimore of I'm trying to think who the kicker was for them that missed the kick in Foxborough late in the AFC title game. I think it was Lee Evans might have dropped a pass that they could have won in there in Foxborough. Next thing you know, and he's told this story with us, he's interviewing here for the head coach opening. He gets the job, of course, the rest is history. So was a DB coach and then a D coordinator only for 1 year with John Harbaugh. So he will go back there to the Ravens.
He's only 64, is Pagano.
64.
Yeah, he's got time to still be a good NFL coach. I know he's been out the last couple years. You think that's more him, or you think it's just more the NFL?
Yeah, I think Life in Idaho is pretty good for him.
I think it probably is. He does some media, obviously.
I think the McAfee gig is pretty good for him.
Probably pays okay for 1 day of work.
Gets to come back to a place he's clearly very fond of. He does stuff on Wish TV and his gala, of course, in April and all of that. So clearly has the itch. I know the granddaughters.
Not good for him.
I should say the daughters have grandkids, and so I think he spent a lot of time, and I'm sure Tina's like, get out of the house.
Yeah, it's been a couple years. Get the hell out of here. So congratulations there to Coach Pagano. All right, coming up on the other side, are the Pacers in an odd spot with Miles Turner, the trade deadline approaching? We'll talk about it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Wouldn't be an NBA trade deadline without a Miles Turner discussion. Don't know if we need to awake J&V for this one, but Andy Sweeney's got some thoughts on it upcoming. Again, the trade deadline 8 days away. The Pacers will play tonight against the Pistons. 3 more after that until the deadline. They'll actually be out west during the NBA trade deadline. Pacers will have 4 games out there as they get into the deadline, and then the All-Star break is coming up very soon. Mentioned to you guys earlier, I've got to get off my lawn, but I think we all can hold hands together on this.
Okay, go. Now, this is like your third one of these in the last couple weeks. So
I think this one's a different one.
Okay. All right, let's go. Hear it.
The other one I had was I'm sick and tired of people fouling up 3. It's the right decision, but we need to abolish that rule. It sucks the life out of the end of games. It's a parade to the foul line. I don't blame. Let me be clear. I don't blame coaches.
No,
but it just
it's terrible.
Sucks the energy right out of the building. NCAA National Championship game, first Monday in April.
Right.
We're bumping it up 30 minutes.
Are they?
Start time is going to 8:50 instead of 9:20.
Is that what they said they're doing?
Are we all in unison that we're good with it?
I mean, yeah.
A 9:20 start time?
I've always
remember how long Purdue fans had to drink 9 cups of coffee to get there.
Oh, I mean, especially for us, we're up so early. I'm tired by the time the game starts. I mean, they do this. College basketball always does this, even when they have things like the Champions Classic. Duke, Kansas, Kentucky. I forget the other team that's there. Michigan State. That second game doesn't go off until damn near 10 o'clock. It's ending well after midnight Eastern time. I'm fine with it. I still don't know why it can't be at 8:30.
Well, I'm
not going to.
Can we crawl before we walk here?
Yeah, but I feel like we have fought for decades to get them to move the game up, and they're giving us 8:50. I guess I feel like we didn't get enough. I guess we had to meet in the middle. That they didn't want to do 8:30, but they also didn't want to do 9:20. So now it's 8:50.
I mean, I always thought
it's progress.
I thought I was getting punked on an annual basis when they're like a 9:19 tip time tonight.
Brother,
I'm
with you.
Dude,
I'm an old man.
I don't need to hear Nance giving me the intros at 9:16 p.m. Can we get it going a little earlier? Again, the NCAA college football national title we saw obviously a week ago Monday. That literally kicked off at like 7:45. Now I get that it's obviously a longer game, but this to me is a much needed positive step. And I sound old.
Well, you're gonna be 60, 65 years old by the time it goes to 8:30. If we go by tradition, they'll keep it at 8:50 for many decades now. I mean, listen, I'm fine with it, but again, the NFL, when do they play their games? Even their primetime games. When do those primetime games start? When does the Super Bowl start?
Super Bowl kicks at what?
6:30.
I was going to say 6:35.
6:30, baby.
Yeah.
It's going to be over 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's going to be done. I don't know why college basketball does what it does. It's a Monday in April where there's absolutely nothing going on in the entire world. I mean, again, Indy 500, what time does that start? It doesn't start at 9:45 at night.
San Antonio for the Final Four coming up this year. It's a
great spot for it, by the way.
Probably a long shot, but I do think it's a conversation that we possibly could start to have with Purdue. Purdue's got 10 quad 1 and 2 wins. Not to get, again, too nerdy into that stuff, but Andy, that's a very impressive number.
Sure it is.
If you look at it right now in college basketball, I want to say just Auburn and Alabama are the only two that have more than that. Obviously, the SEC has afforded many more of these opportunities.
Like Florida has 9, but Purdue has more quad 1 wins than them.
So I think something to keep an eye on here. And again, Purdue is going to probably have to win the Big Ten, win at Michigan State, probably win the Big Ten tournament, some things like that. But if they are able to get on a run here late in the season, they could go through Indy.
They could.
To go to the Final Four. Again, Indy is a regional site this year.
They could.
Inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. And what they try to do is they do try to regionalize things for the top seeds. Last year, remember, Purdue's path was Indy first 2 rounds over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Then they went up to Detroit for the Sweet 16 Elite 8 before going, of course, to the Final Four out in Phoenix. This year, your regionals are Indy, Atlanta, Newark, and San Francisco. Again, the SEC is certainly going to have at least one seed, possibly another. You would think Atlanta will, of course, be the spot that SEC seed or SEC team is going to want to go to. So again, a team that played at Hinkle last night, Marquette, is going to be a team that is building that sort of resume as well. So I know Purdue fans maybe haven't paid a super close attention to that, and it's probably not the most pertinent thing in the world. But when you start to look at where they are right now, and most bracketologies I think have Purdue right now is maybe that best 3 seed or the lowest 2 seed, kind of right around there. So again, they're going to need to get more of these wins, but it could be. I mean, how many times have you got a team that makes the Final Four and the next year they come back and they're a 1 seed again? Especially losing the 2-time national player of the year.
I'm looking at it. You could be in Cleveland. That's 4.5 hours away.
And again, those are the first 2 rounds.
I'm talking about the first. I'm talking about the first 2 rounds.
I've seen Milwaukee for Purdue. That's a close
Milwaukee's
drive.
close. Lexington is about 3-ish from here.
Yeah, a little longer from Purdue, of course, from West Lafayette.
That's a good point.
From Indy. So, yeah, the early sites for those that care, Providence, Raleigh, Lexington, Milwaukee, Andy said Cleveland, Wichita, Denver, Seattle. But then regional-wise, Indy is a host here. So
yeah, it's beautiful. And it's, March is beautiful in Cleveland. I've been there before. It's been snowing March Madness.
Well,
I've covered a game where it's snowing in Cleveland March Madness.
Notre Dame hoops dreams died in the Elite Eight.
I wasn't going to bring it up. That was the exact game.
I believe that was a decade ago.
It was the exact week. Was it? Was it really? It's 10 years ago?
I think it was 2015.
You have that on a calendar somewhere in the house? Quickly here. So Tony E's going to join us at 8 o'clock. We'll get to, or 8:30. We'll get back into some Colts conversation coming up at 8 o'clock. I know this is probably for many, it's we've been here, we've done that. It's a rolling of the eyes. And so part of me is asking, KB, it's asking you and Mark, and it's and the audience as well. I was scanning some stuff yesterday. And, the conversation with Anthony Davis, he goes down, does Anthony Davis. And, I'm just looking around the internet, and I'm seeing a gentleman by the name of Joe Von Bua, who is the Lakers beat writer for The Athletic. And, so I dialed up his podcast, and I kind of had the timestamp on where I needed to go. And one thing he mentioned, this is kind of a jumping off point to the conversation. One thing that he mentioned, again, this is a writer for The Athletic who follows the Lakers, is that the people around the Lakers have heard that the Pacers are quietly open to listening in the next, week and a half or so for an offer for Miles Turner. And what I'm asking is, and I know Turner's name has forever, over the last several years, has been out there, and I understand that, and I like Turner. Listen, JMV has been here long enough. He is the Miles Turner guy, so I guess I'm a little bit on his bandwagon. I'm trying to ride shotgun because I like Miles Turner. I've told you many times that, that straight-on 3 from Miles Turner on that pick and roll is just a deadly play, and I believe in that play for the Pacers. So anyway, I like Miles Turner. Are the Pacers in a tricky spot with him this year? And what I mean by that is, obviously, if you are going to make a push in the playoffs, you need Turner or you need somebody. You can't trade him away for assets and think that you're going to make another run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Thrown into that as well, KB, would be, okay, you're good, but you need more, right? And then, of course, the trickiest part is, what are you going to do with Miles Turner? He is a free agent at the end of the year, and he is going to command damn near $30 million a year. You remember Isaiah Hartenstein last year for the Knicks, who went to the Oklahoma City Thunder? He's making $30 million a year. He signed a 3-year deal. This year he makes 30. Next year he makes 28.5. The year after he makes 28.5. So if you are of the belief that the Pacers have another spot here to make some sort of big move, what do you do with Miles Turner? And if you're going to give him a contract when he's going on to be 29 years old of $30 million, is that a good business decision? In other words, you can love Miles Turner. You do love Miles Turner. But at some point, it does become a business. And we have not, and I guess what triggered this conversation, besides some of the Lakers stuff, we haven't really talked that much about it. We've talked about, what about Matherin? What about Obi Toppin? He's got a very friendly deal. What about Jarris Walker, who's obviously playing a little bit less now that they're back to full strength? And, Miles Turner, if you can get a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a role player or two Is that something the fan base cares about? I'm trying to gauge kind of the temperature in the room, KB, on what do we do now? I know you guys have done this story so many times. What do we do now that Miles Turner at the end of this year could absolutely walk and you get nothing for him, or you get something for him now, and that could either help or hinder what you do this season trying to make a run back to the Eastern Conference Finals? It's kind of a tricky situation that the Pacers are in, and they're being very quiet about it.
Yeah, I've always felt this, especially when you're a market like Indiana. You can't let guys walk in free agency. You just can't. You've got to get some return. And correct me if I'm wrong, don't you start to lose a first-round pick or two coming up here?
You do.
You do. I'm trying to think how the Siakam trade played out, but I want to say there is a future first-round pick or two here upcoming. I don't think it's this year's draft, but maybe the next, and maybe a little bit deeper into the 2020s that you do lose. So your ability to make that move, like you just pointed out, is shrinking, I guess, in terms of flexibility. Now, obviously, Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker, I still think are in a position to where what are they, who are they, and how do they fit? And the Walker thing, again, we'll see about the injury situation. I think he'll obviously find playing time here late in the season, but right now he hasn't. I mean, he's been the odd man out since the return of Aaron Nesmith. Turner is such a – I guess I start here, Andy. What does Turner want? How old is he? 30?
He's 28. He'll be 29 in March. He'll be 29 in March. So when you sign him, he'll be going into 30 years old when the money really starts to hit.
Does he view this as this is my last real payday in the league?
I think you have to. He's a 7-footer. He has any injury issues, but yeah, I think you have to.
And I've been an unbelievable soldier for the Pacers. They or whatever, I say they. I think they would even admit that his name has come up a lot in trade discussions, and yet here he is, one of the longest tenure Pacers in years. So what does he want? And that's the hard thing, because you can't extend him right now. You can't do that till the offseason. So you're just kind of going on, him and his representation's word of like, no, we want to stay here. Well, then all of a sudden, if you get to the offseason and, insert team here, dangle something a little bit higher, do you run to that? Now, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be a good question for Tony East here when he joins us at 8:30. I don't think there's a lot of teams with a ton of cap space that would make sense for Turner this offseason. So I think that is worth pointing out. It's kind of a soft stance, but I almost think you've dangled Turner for so long. I would argue he's playing his best basketball of his career since being put alongside Tyrese Halliburton. Pascal Siakam clearly enjoys having a stretch center next to him. And again, you've dangled his name for so long. Why not just keep it going?
I know. That's almost how I...
Now, financially, it's going to continue to shrink that puzzle and the flexibility you have with that puzzle.
Business-wise, it's not a smart decision, but if you're going to make a run for anything this year, you kind of need Miles Turner. And then I guess you're just kind of hoping the Mathurin and or Walker thing continues to progress, or maybe Nembhard. I don't know how you view that backcourt. I would listen to everything, but I'm probably in the pro-keep Turner camp. There is a little bit. I was talking about this with a buddy of mine who's a big Pacer fan yesterday. And I'm probably giving this guy too much credit because at this point in his career, you probably are what you are. But Turner and Thomas Bryant are both free agents. How much money is Thomas Bryant going to command in the open market? That's a good point. It's a good point. He's a solid backup. He's a very good backup
Let's
center.
say you save $20 million. $20 million would be the difference between Turner and Bryant. Would that $20 million come in handy for your team and doing something else? That is a thought that I've had. And again, I might be giving Thomas Bryant way too much credit for the past month or two that he's played here. But skill set wise, he's got some similarities to Turner. He's not a ton younger than Miles, but he is a little bit younger than him. Is that an avenue to explore? Now, again, you still are void of centers on your basketball team. Wiseman and Jackson, I just don't think you can bank on coming off torn Achilles. And this kind of goes back to draft discussion we had last year, Andy. I was a fan of spending one of those picks on a center. I just thought to myself, throw a dart. Who knows? Maybe you'll hit, maybe you won't. But that's a position that I think you got to start to look ahead a little bit. So, to sum it all up, I'm probably in the no on it, but I understand where the question comes from. And it would be malpractice not to at least listen and view those things. And ultimately, the decision is going to come down to what does Miles Turner want. I think the Pacers will want to bring him back. The decision is going to come down to Turner of saying, no, this is where I want to be really throughout my entire career, or I possibly could find the bigger payday.
I'll give you another analogy. I gave you an analogy yesterday. It feels like for me, and then we can move on from this. Like, let me give you an analogy of Mike McCarthy. So did you guys see that Mike McCarthy pulled his name out of the New Orleans Saints job?
I did,
Now,
yes.
whether that was he didn't want the job because it's kind of a stinky job with no quarterback and a crappy roster and no salary cap space, or if it's he kind of knows the gig is going to go to like Kellen Moore, right? And he's like, well, I'm going to pull my name out of contention knowing that he's not going to get the job that somebody else, whether it's Mike Kafka, I don't know, whatever happened to that, or Kellen Moore is going to get the job. Mike McCarthy's thinking a guy who's in his early 60s, I'm going to get one more shot to be a head coach in the NFL. Do I want it to be the Saints? I kind of feel that way with Miles Turner, not that he's going to get one more shot at a contract, but don't you feel like the Pacers have one more move here that they can make? That they're in that in-between zone right now where they have a bunch of good players and they have a bunch of very friendly contracts, but they're also contracts and players that could be used to move on in the next year if there was another, I say, superstar player, upper echelon player to join Siakam and Halliburton, and they gotta gauge when they're gonna do that, right? They gotta pounce at the exact right time. Otherwise, you're gonna bring someone in here that's not gonna fit, and you're gonna waste a bunch of money. And again, I view them as having one more swing at this thing, and then they would have more of a 7 or 8 man rotation instead of a 10-man rotation.
Well,
it would fundamentally change who they are.
Adam says this, at some point we have to push our chips all in for a run.
That's what I'm talking about.
If we deal Turner, we don't get back to the Eastern Conference Finals or Finals. See, I would argue probably against that thought of like pushing all your chips into the middle for Turner. I don't know if that creates the highest ceiling.
Listen, I'm with you. See, I disagree with that guy. If you're going to push the chips in, you're pushing the chips in not with Miles Turner.
He's been a great piece, but I'm just not sure of and whatever Siakam's making here, like $35 million tied up in a 4-man that's not kind of the hey, go guard Tatum tonight and go guard Giannis tonight, and then Turner, who also would be of course approaching 30 very quickly. Don't think that's the move. Again, in an ideal world, I think you'd find kind of a mid to upper 20s, which again you're probably gonna have to tie some sort of whatever, Turner and Mathurin or Turner and Walker together to get that sort of piece, but a little bit more of a timeline piece of a Halliburton if you really want to try and create the higher ceiling. It might create a lower floor, but that's the discussion that I think you at least have to listen to. So yeah, I if you ask me right now, what do you think they're going to do between now and next Thursday? I'd say nothing.
Yeah, I would say nothing. That would be my guess. It's an interesting spot to be in because you could lose him for nothing. That has not always been the case when you've had a Miles Turner trade conversation.
By the way, last night,
oh boy,
I come out of the changing room at the swim school where Rosie's
How many times are you at this pool?
taking lessons. We go twice a week.
So she
She's
likes
like daily at this point.
I mean, it sounds like
Tuesdays
you're
and
always
Saturdays.
there. So she likes this. She likes the swimming stuff.
Like is an
Okay,
aggressive
well.
term, but once we get in the pool, then we're better.
Fair enough.
See a man sitting down with his son.
Okay.
Arizona gear. I'm thinking, oh boy, he had to love Caleb Love's shot last night, right?
Yeah,
60-footer. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
me, rocking the Notre Dame hat. I'm so happy after they win. Sure enough, it's TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell and his son
Oh my God.
at the swim school.
Oh, how about that? He dunked yesterday. Did you see the video of him dunking?
I did see the video.
Obi Toppin, I think it was Obi was being interviewed, and he's like, his back's going to hurt in the morning.
I thought, while our kids play sharks and minnows, do I discuss anything with TJ? And I just say to him, did you really dunk it? Because when you watch the video.
It looked like he dunked it. Are you saying he didn't dunk it?
No. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure. He goes, I did. Trust me. He goes, it took everything I got. And then I watched our two children enter the pool, and let's say Carmel High School, I think, is already recruiting his son
I'm sure they are.
to continue their swimming tradition. And Carmel High School took one look at Rosie and said, we have a manager position that's open for you.
When's the, oh, come on. Come on. How old is she? You don't know. Well, I guess people at Carmel probably do know.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Have you seen Carmel High School? Do you know how many they've won in a row?
When are they building their whole new facility?
I think
there?
it's already built, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
they have 2 pools now up there at Carmel.
I think they have more than 2. I have no idea.
Gosh.
I have absolutely no
Impressive.
idea. McConnell in March is going to be 33 years old.
Is he
And
really that old?
If he is, if you didn't see it, he did the one bounce. It took him a couple different times to get the timing down, but he did the one bounce.
It was a legit dunk.
And he went up there and he dunked the damn basketball.
He did. Do we have any dunks from him in a game?
Oh, listen, I was going to ask you this. I did not think that T.J. McConnell could dunk at this point in his career. I mean, I did when he was 25 years old, but I did not think at going on 33 years old and a guy who probably, is not that's not what he's practicing. He's not a high flyer like Obi Toppin, shocking enough. I didn't think TJ McConnell could still do it.
That was hilarious. Toppin's press conference yesterday. He's like, no. Guys, we need to stop talking. I have to watch this. Are we starting to get some dunk contest people announced, by the way?
I have no idea.
I thought I saw Andre Jackson from the Bucks. You remember him at UConn?
Yeah.
He was kind of a high flyer.
Yeah, I remember
And then
him.
I think Mac McClung, in all seriousness, is back.
No, he is back. He's the first one that's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'll do it.
So we're still going to get, 4 people you have to Google? I mean, seemingly that's been the dunk contest group. Did we not? Was it Jaylen Brown last year? I remember Jaylen Brown. Was it last year?
I think so.
I remember he did it recently, and I was like, oh, my gosh. Credit to Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, this is a tier 1 player who's out there dunking the basketball.
Top whatever, 15 player in the league, 20 player in the league, and he's out there in the dunk contest.
I don't have the energy to go through the dunk contest rhetoric on the air. Is it wrong of me? I mean, everyone knows that, LeBron's never going to do it. The big-time players are never going to do it. If someone like Jaylen Brown does do it, we're going to be surprised. It's going to be Mac McClung because he's kind of like the shorter white guy. He's going to do a dunk, and everyone's going to act like it's better than it actually is. Like, we already know what it's going to be. We already know what ESPN Radio will talk about the next day leading into the dunk contest.
It's Mac McClung, Spurs rookie Stephon Castle.
Oh, he can jump.
Yeah.
He's a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I remember him.
Bulls rookie Modest Bucelis.
Oh, that's your guy, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, Mark,
watched
this is where you interject about him.
And then Bucks guard Andre Jackson Jr.
All right, well, Castle could turn into something. Castle had a couple moments in Paris. I was like, wow. I mean, he challenged, I think it was maybe Turner at the rim. I was like, geez, I didn't know he could get up like that. So, yeah, shout out to T.J. McConnell's kid. He can swim.
The one thing, we'll go to break. The one thing
and his dad can dunk.
Well, I'm sure he can. The one thing that I miss most on the dunk contest was back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, where all the players had camcorders. I miss the camcorder. The invention. Mark shaking his head. Yes. Remember when Shaq and Akeem Olajuwon?
For some reason, I'm picturing Jermaine O'Neal courtside.
Jermaine O'Neal's a great one. Kevin Garnett. They all had their little camcorders, and I miss the camcorder. That's what I miss during the dunk contest.
Got something I want to celebrate for Purdue football fans out there.
Okay, I like that.
Is that a comment we've uttered at all here recently?
I don't think so. Hour number 2, I guess we're going to talk Barry Odom, and I know, I'm joking, and I know both of us have a thought on the quarterback situation with the Colts. We'll dive into that as well. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Hour number 2 coming up next here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
8 o'clock hour on this Wednesday morning. Thank you for spending it with us. We'll get some Anthony Richardson conversation here in the 8 o'clock hour. Reminder, Jol Erikson will join us at 9. Looking forward to hearing Tony East talk about Miles Turner and exactly how that puzzle could fit moving forward, as he will hop on the show coming up at 8:30. I mentioned before the break, I've got something Purdue football fans can celebrate.
All right, so we yesterday had Bernard Pollard on. I think people celebrated hearing him. It was a fantastic interview talking about Lou Anarumo. So what else?
This might be the wildest Chiefs stat of them all.
Okay.
The Chiefs have won 17 straight one-possession games.
It's unbelievable. I saw ESPN put this stat out.
Is that the wildest one?
It's just unbelievable.
17 straight one-possession games.
Because a lot of times, one-possession games can be luck, but you win that many and you win in the manner, we watch all their games. It's not luck. It's a skill. It's a skill that they have in these 50-50 games.
Like, imagine hitting that parlay. Someone telling you.
I can't imagine
that. And, man,
that.
the Chiefs are going to play 17 straight one-possession, or have 17, one-possession games. It goes back to December of last season. Can you name the quarterback that last beat them in a one-possession game?
Oh, it's got to have a local flavor, doesn't it? It's got to have a local flavor. Who is it? It's got to be, I don't know. Is it luck? I don't know. It's got to have a local flavor of some kind if you're bringing it up. Tell me who it is.
Purdue fans rejoice.
Oh, is it Curtis Painter?
Aiden O'Connell, baby.
Aiden O'Connell. There you go. Of course, it's Christmas, right?
Aiden O'Connell last December in a stat line that certainly indicates Aiden O'Connell was terrific. 9 of 21 for 62 yards.
Didn't they sack him 300 times?
The Raiders
they sacked Mahomes.
Beat the Chiefs. Zamir White ran for 145. That started 17 straight ones. And these playoff games have largely been that. I think 4 of the 5 playoff games here recently have been one-possession games. So it is quite amazing to think that not only have they been in that many games, that they've absolutely flourished in pulling out all those games.
We never talked about this, and we'll have lots of time to talk about the Super Bowl next week. And I know you guys may not care, but I think there is listen, I think if the Chiefs win, I think Travis Kelce is gonna propose to Taylor Swift on the field.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm starting to see there's some odds that you can bet where that might happen. Man. I'm thinking, is that going to happen? They're all smooching. Is there enough
security for the Superdome for that?
They were all smooching and making out and everything after all these games, after the AFC Championship game. And someone threw it out there. It's like he's gonna propose to her if they win. Now, obviously, if they don't win, you're not going to be a loser in the Super Bowl. And I am now fully behind the Kansas City Chiefs.
Like you want them to win, or you're betting on them?
They're me and Jimmy Cook's Kansas City Chiefs. I am now riding shotgun with
Jimmy. Does Jimmy Cook know this?
No, he'll never find out. Boy, he was smiling yesterday back with Jake. I'm like, who's got it better than Jimmy Cook?
Jimmy's got a great smile.
I'm like, who's got it better than Jimmy Cook right now?
He'd send me some pics after Notre Dame's wins in the playoff, and he'd be just smiling ear to ear. It's perfect. Now, he'll start cheering for Cooper Flagg once the Chiefs season ends, and I think he's got a Donovan Mitchell jersey he's ready to break out if the Cavs can.
He's got a Darius Garland jersey somewhere in the
Jared
closet.
Allen, does he wear rec specs? I feel like he did back in the day, maybe. I just found that amazing. 17 straight one-possession wins for the Chiefs.
Yeah, when we get done with the Chiefs dynasty, whenever that starts to slow down, and it ain't slowing down anytime soon, the it's going to be like New England. The stats and the streaks and the things that they have done the last several years is just going to be foreign to any team, to just about any team in the NFL. Before we dive into the Colts, did you happen to see our guy Greg Campy got suspended for a game?
No.
Our friends at the Horizon League, I guess
our
he had to
Oakland
get suspended.
Grizzly, the man that upset Cal last year in the tournament?
Our guy Greg Campy.
What did he do?
Who ruined John Calipari's career last year in the NCAA tournament. So I'm trying to find video of what happened, but apparently there was a bad call at the end, and they fouled on a 3, and they lost to Robert Morris by 2, And I guess Campy went absolutely ape bleep on the side.
Gosh, do we have video?
I'm trying to find it.
Man.
I did not see it until this morning. The Horizon League put something out later last night, so I didn't see it. I think I was already asleep. So I guess Campy went nuts. He got a 1-game suspension for going completely crazy, I guess, on the sideline. But the Horizon League has actually moved on, I guess you could say fired, or they just won't schedule this individual, that the official that made what's being called a significant error late in the game is no longer going to be a Horizon League official. How about that?
Wow.
How about that?
Looks like we got some talk. We got some small talk next year at Media Day, Horizon League Media Day.
I think
with
so.
Coach Campy.
Well, I mean, weekly, Greg Rakestraw does the show. We'll have to
I
ask
didn't think
Rakestraw.
about that.
Rakestraw on Friday. We're going to have ask Greg what happened here. So our guy Greg Campy suspended for 1 game. Boy, I bet he used a lot of profanity. He's a good user of profanity, I'm thinking, after interviewing Campy for 10 minutes.
Well, the thing is, he's got like a great demeanor with you, and then
Oh, it's great.
boy, he can flip the switch certainly.
Yeah, he can.
On that end.
Can I ask you a Colts question or two?
Yeah, what do you got?
Okay, so you mentioned this yesterday in passing, and I agreed with it. And by the way, I do agree with it, but I wanted to just two things. So you said something yesterday, and then ESPN, if you go to ESPN.com, right now they're like the rest of us. We're waiting for the Super Bowl and, free agency in March and the draft coming up and everything else. Senior Bowl this week, whatever. And they kind of did different scenarios. If Sam Darnold signed with the Giants, what would happen? If Sam Darnold went back to Minnesota, if Sam Darnold went to, these teams, Raiders and Saints and Titans, and all these teams need a quarterback of some kind, a starter or a bridge quarterback or a good backup, whatever it may be. And so, there's been the scuttle. I wouldn't even call it scuttle. They played out a scenario where Daniel Jones ended up here in Indy. They played out a scenario. What about 3 for about $100 million or so? Sam Darnold ended up in Indianapolis, just playing out different scenarios. But you mentioned yesterday that kind of Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard and what happens to those two guys and this kind of era, this regime with the Colts is going to come down to, quite frankly, Anthony Richardson and what happens with him over the next year or so. And I just got thinking, are we sure that's the case? And then I would also throw on there, it sounded like in his 1-hour press conference that Chris Ballard did a couple weeks ago, KB, that he is really worried, and they should be, they're worried about the health of Anthony Richardson. And I think reading between the lines, the confidence that has been there the last several times that Ballard has spoke publicly, it was not there. I didn't think a couple weeks ago. Not that they like Anthony Richardson. They've seen stuff from AR that they like, but he has also been, he hasn't been very good much of the time, and he also hasn't been available much of the time. And so, is there a difference when we talk about them acquiring a quarterback, whoever that may be this offseason, when we talk about poor play or injury issues? In other words, do you bring in a better quarterback if you're arguing, hey, we have a quarterback here in Anthony Richardson that isn't cutting it? Or is it a different level of quarterback you bring in when you're simply talking about a guy that might miss 4, 5, 6 games in a season? Does that make sense? And then my first question was, is it going to come down to Anthony Richardson? In other words, Sam Darnold is available, and I hate even throwing this name out there. Mark just left the room. ESPN brought up the name, what about a 1 year, and I know you hate this, what about Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers, if the Jets don't want him, and I don't think the Jets should bring him back. I want to be clear with the new coaching staff there.
I can't believe you said that once Mark left the room.
I know.
Did you do that on purpose?
I didn't know he was going to leave the room. I don't know where he went.
You didn't know how his bowel movements work?
He never leaves the room at 8:08. So, my
pray for the cleaning lady.
You said, it's going to come down to what happens with AR if they're going to be able to save themselves. I agree with that. But if they're having reservations, and I don't see how after 2 years you wouldn't have reservations, they're in a tricky spot of, Do we believe this guy can help save us and can make the playoffs and can save the franchise when Sam Darnold is available, and I don't love him. And, Mark, I just mentioned Aaron Rodgers going to the Colts. And Aaron Rodgers, in a one-year situation.
I was going to cuss, but Mark was out of the room, and so I was like, well, he can't hit the dump button.
Does that make sense? And then you have the whole, we don't know if he can play, and then he's injured. Are they actually going to rely on Anthony Richardson? Do they need to? Is there another move here that we're not seeing? And then to throw on top of that, I don't think the Vikings keep Daniel Jones because they can get a compensatory pick if he goes somewhere else. That's kind of a tricky thing they did by elevating him to the 53-man roster. So, each day we're talking Colts in some sort of way. That's just, kind of my thoughts last night as I'm thinking of, hey, there are a couple names out there other than Justin Fields. I happen to believe, even if it's Fields is going to want to be a starter. Not as much in concrete as Sam Darnold, but Justin Fields isn't going to sit somewhere for 12 games like he just did in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I would puke at Aaron Rodgers.
And it would be a one-year thing on a 41-year-old quarterback.
Did I miss something? I just thought he looked old as hell.
Well, I agree. I want nothing to do with him. I think he is a
and I've probably been a little bit more
issue.
of a, hey, Rodgers is a great, I know Mark obviously has some fan venom towards him, but, he's obviously an incredible talent, but, he's just old. He's just old.
Well,
he's walking up, whatever, 16, 17, or 18, however you want to label it.
He would be the one that I would want nothing to do with simply because it's a Matt Ryan, it's a Phillip Rivers.
And I'm not even talking about the drama of it all and, all of that saga that just inevitably comes with him. I'll just talk about him on the field. As far as Darnold is concerned, I still think there's an element of, for this regime to, whatever, have a 2026 and beyond, it's going to have to be with Richardson.
So they can't make the playoffs with somebody else. I guess that ultimately is kind of the
who
point.
The hell are you making the playoffs with?
Well, the argument would be if you brought in Sam Darnold, even if it's a 2-year deal worth $30 million a year or some sort of.
Have you seen the quarterbacks in the AFC?
I know.
It ain't the quarterbacks in the NFC. I
the AFC South does stink, though.
Right, but
it does.
Still, you're at a point in time where, you still have all these, all of them besides Russell Wilson, right? And the playoffs are 29 and under, and that didn't include Burrow.
Yep.
And that, I don't know how you want to look at any other quarterbacks. Does Tua, if Tua stays healthier, does he still have life?
What about Jacksonville?
Yeah, does Lawrence resurrect things? Does Drake May have a big ascent? Does Mike Vrabel help? There, that's a Pro Bowler in Drake May, by the way, as announced yesterday.
Oh, was he? Good for him.
So I just, I think they'll have one lifeline at some point. If the Richardson thing is a disaster, I think at some point, early-ish in the year, you could turn to whoever else is on your roster, and maybe that'll work. But I don't see this. Unless something else crystallizes, I don't see this as a, Matthew Stafford dangling carrot out there of 3 off seasons ago of, hey, someone will make an offer to the Lions. Who's that going to be? I don't see that type of quarterback. Unless I'm missing something, I don't see the, 7th best quarterback in the NFL or 10th best quarterback in the NFL all of a sudden being available, even via trade, this offseason. So, I don't, unless I'm missing the boat on somebody, I just don't see that happening. And again, I've always been anti-Band-Aid. I always think that that's just kind of the outlier move. I think if you look at the teams that have staying power and the teams that are on the best trajectory in the AFC in some way, shape, or form, you'd say Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans. And all 4 of those quarterbacks are drafted. 3 of those teams have obviously been there on a pretty routine basis. And the Texans right now have won a playoff game in each of C.J. Stroud's first 2 seasons. So
But KB, if their back is against the wall.
But who's the answer?
I know, but
Darnold?
The problem is
Darnold for 20-some million when you have $28 million in cap space. So what are you doing elsewhere?
Listen, I know
you're going to run it back around Darnold.
All these guys that we're talking about, though, are better than Anthony Richardson. And so if their back is
Daniel Jones is better than Anthony Richardson.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think Anthony, all these Sam Darnold. All these
Anthony
guys
Richardson's
are better.
got issues. Anthony Richardson was also 8-7 as a starting quarterback, and the Colts just fired their defensive coordinator. So you're 8-7 as a starting quarterback, and you've got issues, and you fired your defensive coordinator. So you're saying defense has been an issue, right?
Oh, defense has been a big issue.
Okay, so if your defense would have played a little better, is that Richardson record 10-5?
Yeah,
Could you not live with an Anthony Richardson at 10-5?
Is that Anthony Richardson's record? I mean, we also did the
well,
dance
if you're firing the defensive coordinator, it's not like you're pitching shutouts with Anthony Richardson at quarterback.
We also did the dance of who they beat and who they did not beat and how that's going to be more difficult next year.
Right,
I think the Colts are in a tricky spot because Anthony Richardson, I think they don't believe that he is going to be the parachute that's going to save them. But I agree with you. They don't have anywhere else to go.
I'd rather try Anthony Richardson at a third year and a healthy offseason and whatever he's trying to do to retool his throwing than see Daniel Jones' resurrection project come here.
Then you're not going to get Justin Fields. I agree with you. Then your backup's going to be Gardner Minshew. Then we're going to bring in legit competition for Anthony Richardson doesn't exist. Like that's kind of the road I'm going down.
Who defines legit competition for Richardson?
It's a great. Oh, we do. The media, I guess, ultimately Chris Ballard does, but I agree with you. If I'm a Colts fan, I don't want to see Daniel Jones. I've seen him 6 years in New York. I have no interest, but he might be $10 million a year, $7-8 million a year. It'd be a little bit like Flacco.
Would you rather see him draft a quarterback in the third round?
I would. Yes. Probably. I got no problem with that. I would not fight that. If you told me, third round, you get Quinn Ewers. I don't know. I mean, a kid out of Texas. Of course, I guess at some point we might clamor for him. I guess I bring it up because they're in a spot to where the thing that they need is not something that really exists in the NFL. Of course you don't want to go pay money to Sam Darnold. You don't want to give him $25-30 million a year. No one wants to do that. And you know what? I think you might be able to make the playoffs, but are you really going to make a run? Are you really going to make a run with Sam Darnold? The answer is no, but could he save your job if you're the head coach and if you're the GM? And if it's not Sam Darnold, which it will not be, someone will overpay him who is desperate. The Giants, the Saints, the Raiders, somebody will overpay him. Then you get to this next group of guys, and this next group of guys, I don't know, there's going to be several options out there. Justin Fields doesn't need to settle to be a backup.
Justin Fields might be the starter in Pittsburgh next year.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Russell Wilson is washed as Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are. They don't need to sit there and battle and be in a quarterback battle come August. They're going to get the job.
Again, to me, it's stunning that the resume of Ballard is getting the ninth season. So it's probably a little bit rooted in that general thought, Andy. But like when you bring up these names, you bring up other quarterbacks potentially. Whatever, sending the Colts to the playoffs or saving this regime, I almost don't think they deserve that. Like, I almost think it should be Richardson or bust.
I think that's actually
a little bit too much of an emotional thought, probably. But like,
no, but they sold this guy. No, it needs to be Anthony Richardson.
Like, how many chances are you going to get? I mean, I've made the analogy before. It's like watching Max Bowen shoot on his Fisher-Price goal. I mean, yeah, he'll miss probably 8 in a row, but at some point, the ball will bounce off the wall and bounce off the front door and bounce off the door handle. It'll go in.
Mason figured it out. Like already. Like
Look at that.
He figured out the dunking of the basketball.
Max is not.
But,
so, at some point, you're bound to run into something that works. Does that all of a sudden mean you extend him? I mean, Chris Ballard is going to be in a contract year in 2026. Is he lame ducking it, or are you going to extend him?
No, that's a fantastic question.
As wild as a conversation as that might be.
It's a valid question.
So that's where I guess there is a little bit of when you bring up those names, they're largely disgusting, which, welcome to when you're stuck in quarterback purgatory in the NFL.
Welcome to the quarterback bin when you can't draft one.
But there also is a part of me that's like, I don't think they deserve that life raft. Like, I almost think it should be viewed as you get Richardson to work or not. Now, again, I think Fields is the one that I could, age-wise, you were a fan of him coming out of Ohio State. That one I could maybe say, all right, is that, whatever, Baker Mayfield to Todd Bowles or, whoever else you want to throw into that boat there. Like that maybe is one that I could listen to, but the other, I mean, again, and this is not me ripping you, but the other names you threw out were Aaron Rodgers and Daniel Jones.
Oh no, they're terrible names. Now I want to listen. Daniel Jones, he's a backup quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers has he has 1 year left in him, and
then again, how do you view the offseason?
If you're he's viewing, a pain in the ass as well.
Let's play out Darnold. If you're viewing and whatever figures you threw out, 20-30 million for Sam Darnold, they have 28 million cap space.
Right.
So if you do the Darnold thing,
Well, if you do the Darnold thing, you trade Anthony Richardson. Much as I hate saying that.
Okay,
I mean,
it's not like you're going to get an absurd amount of things.
You're going to get nothing back.
Okay, let's just play out you are keeping Richardson and you're bringing Darnold in, just to play it out. Where is this added competition on your roster? Where is this we need to do a better job of identifying free agents and get them in here? Where is the creating more legit battles, across both sides? Are you telling Lou Anarumo, here you go? It's pretty much run it back at every level of their defense. So, that's where I also struggle of, and again, they can open up some cap space. It's never been something they've really done under Ballard, but they can do that if they want to. Braden Smith probably is at the top of that list. And then, again, are you passing that torch on to Matt Gonzalez at right tackle? So maybe tomorrow might be a better conversation for it, but I do want to kind of throw just an offseason plan at you. It's a rough sketch. It's probably a little bit more, hey, these are the positions that I think should be addressed. Largely, I think quarterback, it comes down to the Richardson. Miracle is a big, big word to use, but I say miracle just because as much as he can get back to his rookie self, I still don't think he can stay healthy. His rookie self is an acceptable level quarterback. It is he was hovering right around 60%. He wasn't really turning the ball over. You can live with that, but the injuries you can't, and that's what makes it a miracle.
Yeah, and that's what Ballard talked about. No, I bring it up because they're in a bad spot. You don't want to overpay Darnold. The other names you bring up, you're not. Of course, why would you be in love with these other names? But it gets back to a couple weeks ago, them talking about competition for Anthony Richardson. It's why I said then that doesn't exist. That you get a quarterback who's good enough to probably start, who all these other stinky teams in the NFL are not going to overpay. I mean, someone is going to start their season selling their season ticket holders on Russell Wilson. And come August. I mean, come closer than that, by March, April. We'll be talking about that. Chris says, as a season ticket holder, please let us have a backup plan to Anthony Richardson. It just doesn't exist in the NFL.
Well,
you have one quarterback, and that's what you have on these rosters.
How do you define the backup plan?
Someone who could take the job. And I don't think
so.
The
That's
Colts,
not the third round pick, then.
I think it is the third round pick.
Oh,
yeah.
I view take the job and possibly save the 2025 season as a Justin Fields.
Could Quinn Ewers do that? I don't know why I'm using him. Is he can't be a third round pick, right? Is he a second round pick?
I think you mentioned Jalen Milroe to us when we had him on. Again, he seems a little bit more in the Richardson camp of some rawness.
Yeah, I'm not sold that he's ready to do that.
And I think
it's a tough
I think this
spot.
general conversation has led to the answer of none of these things are very appealing to you. And that's where you look at it and, okay, he's throwing with a new quarterback guru or however you want to label these guys this offseason. It's his first ever healthy NFL offseason. Is this the ultimate wake-up call or not? And if it's not, then you start over. And I don't think the lifeboat should be there for this regime.
Yeah, the answer is you're going to live and die this year with Anthony Richardson. And you're going to get the final answer.
I think that should be the answer. Matt, this regime deserves to live or die by Richardson.
Yeah.
If you die, you draft Arch Manning. More hype for Arch Manning or Ben Johnson?
I mean, right now, Ben Johnson, but it's going to be, in the end, Arch Manning. Because, Texas might be preseason number 1 next year. Does Notre Dame play Texas next year? Was I dreaming that? It's not. Who do they open
got
with?
At Miami.
Oh, it's Miami. Okay.
They have at Miami, A&M, and Boise all in the first 4 games.
Do they really?
And they're at Arkansas, which is such a random one to me.
That is random. Who booked that?
I know.
Why are you at Arkansas? I think Sam Pittman, I guess, is still there.
Oh, no.
Who's there? Is Bobby Petrino still at Arkansas? I think
Jim
he is.
sends a picture of the Fisher-Price gold. These rims are unforgiving. I've got Max Bones back. I agree. Those are some brutal rims, to say the least. Tony East coming up in 5. Let's get a quick morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
Yeah, a couple local college basketball games last night. Marquette walks in to Butler. They get the win in Hinkle, 78-69. That's your final. Butler led by 7 at halftime, KB. We talked about it, 42-35. Then Avalanche in the second half outscored by 16. Stevie Mitchell for Marquette. He had a career-high 22 in the win. Notre Dame, 71-68 over Georgia Tech. How about that? What's that, 3 out of 4 for your Fighting Irish?
3 out of 4, baby. Marcus Burton, incredible last night. Pacers back in action tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Pistons, a little bit of intensity here on that one. 5.5, that is the spread. Andrew Nemhard, questionable with a back injury. Again, road teams have won the first 3 matchups in this series, and I think you listen to some Pacers talk about the game yesterday at practice. They're pretty fired up for this one. Only other things I've got here, Zach Edey, Trace Jackson-Davis in the Rising Stars game in the NBA All-Star Weekend coming up here in a few weeks. Again, a reminder, the winner of that makes it to the actual new All-Star Game format. I would think if the All-Star Game was a month later, Khalil Ware would be a no-brainer for the Rising Stars. He's played a lot better here recently. And then Chuck Pagano rejoining John Harbaugh's staff with the Baltimore Ravens.
Love it. Good for him.
Senior secondary coach.
Yeah, good for him.
64 years old.
Chuck Pagano back in the game. Good for him. All right, coming up on the other side, what to do with Miles Turner, if anything. Tony East, he joins us next.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
You know, might have a Sam Darnold thoughts. Our next guest, he's a Vikings fan.
Yes, he is. Long-suffering Vikings fan.
Tony East, outstanding coverage of the Pacers and Fever. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Tony, you want the Vikings to do what at quarterback in 2025?
It's got to be J.J. McCarthy time, I think. I mean, the only two important games the Vikings really played this year went terribly, right? So that was the Kirk Cousins experience. That wasn't very fun. Just go to the young guy, see what happens.
Forget about Kirk Cousins. We should have brought him up, KB.
Boy, Tony started that answer in just such a negative, just that sound he made.
He's a top 10 pick and J.J. McCarthy
can I
making
ask
no
a
money.
question
Come on,
in
let's go.
response?
Vikings won 14 games, and Tony sounded like a bear waking up at the zoo.
So, is it possible, did Darnold lose $100 million with his close to the season?
No, NFL teams are still desperate. I mean, I get why you say that, but, I mean, we just debated it for the last 20 minutes, so somebody will pay him.
Oh, yeah. Someone's going to pay him, brother.
Just look at these quarterback contracts.
If they won a playoff game, he would have made a ton, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Tony East with us here. We're talking Pacers and a little Fever action as well. Pacers Pistons tonight coming up at 7 o'clock inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Has it surprised you at all that Jarris Walker's been the odd man out since Aaron Nesmith has been back from a rotational standpoint?
No, not really. That is what the decisions they've made a lot of the season suggested would be the case. You know, they routinely turned to someone else as their 10th guy or 9th guy or whatever it was. And, there would be games where even when they had 9 guys available, where if they needed to, if it was a tight game they needed to win, or, there were certain questions about how they were going to match up with their bench, Jarris would barely play in those games anyway, even pre-Nesmith return. So, those kind of games made me think that once Nesmith returned, he would probably be the guy that does lose minutes. You guys have talked to Rick on your show, and he's talked about how much he thinks Ben Shepherd's a star in his role, and coaches love, rightly, players that are very consistent, and what you're going to get from them. And Ben Shepherd, a 3-and-D adjacent kind of bench player, is exactly that. He's played pretty well this year, albeit not recently. I don't think he's made a shot since Nesmith returned, ironically. So I kind of thought it would come down to those two, and I thought Jarris would be the guy who loses minutes, which stinks, right? What can you say about this besides that? Because since, Christmas, a little before that, Jarris has played very well, and probably the most consistent stretch of his career. He talked about early in the season feeling like he was playing up and down. I don't think he's played as much down in the last month or so, but someone has to lose minutes. It's very hard for teams to play 11 guys and actually do it in a way that makes sense. So I'm not surprised. I thought that was the answer that they would land on, but it just stinks. It's a result of the depth that they've built their team on.
That's the voice, Tony East. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Last year, through 45 games, Tony, the Pacers were 25-20. Through 45 games this year, the Pacers are 25-20. It's been up and down. We know the injuries. Does it feel the same? Does it feel different? Compare last year to this year.
Yeah, it feels way different. I think the obvious main reason for that is expectations, right? Last year was, maybe this team can make the plan, maybe make the back end of the playoffs, and then they started unbelievable with Halliburton being, a top 10 player in the NBA for the first 2 months of last season, and that really established what they were going to be. They traded for Siakam around this time last year, like a week before this, right? So, the year that a team smashes through expectations, fittingly, the Pistons, the team the Pacers play tonight, are doing that right now, is the one that, just feels like, that a team is so good and they're flying up the standings like this can last forever. This is so great. And then the expectations here, even if it's the exact same in terms of how it goes, it just feels way different, right? So I don't know that their quality in total has been significantly better or worse than last year. But the other thing that happened this year is they were just awful in the first 25 games, going 10-15, and they were really banged up, which they were very rarely hurt to that extent last year. I think that really soured people on what this team could be, and they were playing very bad. They deserved that kind of feeling. It was totally different, and since then they've been very good. One of the best teams in the league by record since, December 10th. So they're just totally different seasons, and that last year's start was so rosy and exciting, and this year's was the opposite, even though it's landed in the same place. That said, the question would be, is landing in the same place what they wanted, right? They do have mostly the exact same team, but the thought of making a little bit of progress by running it back was based on, better defense, which has happened, and young guys making progress, which has kind of happened, and Tyrese Halliburton hasn't been the same guy as last year. So, the thought that they'd be a little better with the same group hasn't been the case, which certainly hurts, even though that a lot of the season has, had different themes that led to the same result.
Again, that is the voice of Tony East. You know that voice quite well. Very informative on that end. He will be sharing his thoughts from inside a Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. Pacers and Pistons, their fourth matchup of the year. Road teams have won the first three in this series. Tony, a week from tomorrow is the trade deadline. The Pacers should do what?
It's hard for them to do anything, right? Their financial situation is just, it makes it really tricky for them to do a ton. It has to be almost like a perfect fit in terms of trade and how much the player they're getting back is making, and that player not actually being worth too much but still be good enough to be considered an upgrade, right? It's just like a very hard overlap of circumstance in that way if they wanted to truly chase an upgrade, just given their financial reality. And I get that people say they should pay the tax, and that would be great if every team in the NBA thought that way, but I don't necessarily think the Pacers are thinking that way this year. So it's hard to see exactly what they'll do. I think there'll be lots of discussion about Miles Turner this week, at least in these kind of conversations, like among us, because his contract is expiring. And even last year when they were good, they traded away Buddy Hield, the rotation player on an expiring contract, but they got back another shooter in that trade, right? They're not going to trade away Miles Turner without getting a center. They're good. And so it doesn't make any sense for them to be sellers. It doesn't make sense for them to trade him away unless they think it's just impossible for them to keep him in the summer. So I don't think they'll explore that too much unless the offer is something they can't refuse. They might have to make a consolidation trade at some point in the next 6 to 10 months. That's something they've got to think about. But they don't have anything like so pressing and obvious to do right now. And the Turner thing is the only expiring thing. They have to sort out their finances at some point. It's a hard time for them to do it. The situation they're in makes it hard for me to see them doing much of anything significant outside of maybe dumping some money in a trade, but it's always possible. And the way the new aprons have taken hold of the league, I think there'll be a lot of money moves this trade deadline, and the Pacers could certainly be involved in something like that.
What would next offseason look like with the re-sign of Turner?
Yeah, it would either be one of two things. It would be them finally admitting that they think they're good enough to potentially pay the tax. And, next year, I believe, because the new CBA, the NBA eased it in, right? They didn't make all the rules hit every single year right away. I think next year the slowest level rung of paying the luxury tax is a little less punitive. So that would be swell. If they wanted to do that, it could just be that simple. But we're seeing this year that this is the highest tax distribution the NBA has ever had. Like right now, it projects to be $17.6 million per team, and the Pacers would be among that group getting that. And so if they do want to stay under and they want to keep Miles Turner, sure, they could probably afford him. It's not so unreasonable that he would make somewhere between $25 and $30 million in the first season of a new deal, but they'd have to probably cut some money elsewhere to do it, whether that's sending away an Obi Toppin for someone who makes less money, or a TJ McConnell or an Aaron Nesmith, or just someone who, is probably in the 20 minutes or less group next year for a smaller contract. It'd probably be the easiest way to keep Turner. And if, they could trade away their first round pick, that would help with salary stuff too. And maybe that becomes worth it to them if they can get good assets in exchange. But, that has to be baked into keeping Turner, right? Keeping Turner, it comes at the expense of someone else potentially. So I think it's feasible. They didn't just get in this situation. They go, oh crap, we forgot about Miles Turner. They know this reality is coming, and I'm sure they've thought of what their plan could be or how they're going to handle this. But yeah, it's going to be the roster building discussion, the most important one for them for the next 6 months, both because of his contract reality and because they don't really have a ton of other immediate pressing need to do this right now contract things. Ben Matherin's next year really, where that becomes more of a discussion. So I think they know they can keep him if they need to, but it will probably require shedding someone or trading someone's contract for a much smaller one, which is easier said than done. But, if the cap grows as much as it projects to next year, and a lot of teams will have their, mid-level exception available for trades, it's possible they could wiggle their way into a situation that makes sense.
Tony, who's your leader in the clubhouse that Isaiah Stewart bows up on tonight at midcourt after the game or at some point
Gosh,
during the game?
need. You imagine him and James Johnson as an undercard with WWE night?
I tell you, it almost happened last time they played. James Johnson had to come out there and say, "Okay, boys, let's move things along. The game's over. Let's go."
Yeah, can I make there needs to be an NBA rule that don't get me wrong, Isaiah Stewart, tough guy, earned the rep, it's fine. But he wasn't even in the game when that started. If you're not in the game, can you just chill out? Just go sit. But Patrick Beverly throwing a ball at somebody while he's on the bench, can you relax? Man, you're not even playing right now. That stuff drives me crazy. What are you so pressed about in that moment? But yeah, the leader, it's got to be JJ, right? That'd be the perfect WWE night moment. This stuff always sounds so fun and exciting. And then, I remember Jimmy Butler versus T.J. Warren. That became nothing. The game after Game Ball Gate last year with the Bucks, that kind of fizzled into nothing. I hope it's fun and intense, but I kind of think it's going to be a little overstated, unfortunately.
Tony East, last one for me. Obviously, your coverage with the Fever. It's been a busy offseason of new faces within their organization. I look around the WNBA, and I'm like, wow, I feel like they've had some massive moves. I was telling Andy earlier, I'm like, I feel like they've 4 Olympians have moved of the 12 on the team. The Fever have done nothing, though. Is this just run it back? Am I missing the calendar here? Obviously, Kelsey Mitchell bringing her back is of huge importance. But what are you seeing, or what do you believe the Fever will do, if anything?
Yeah, I kind of wondered if this would be a challenging free agency period for the Fever to add somebody. Not that they wouldn't want to, right? They have lots of room to do so and are good, and could clearly use more talent on the team, but the way that it's going to work out with the new CBA likely taking effect on the W next year, a ton of players in the league are going to sign one-year deals or should want to sign one-year deals, right? You're going to see that probably with Kelsey Plum as a part of her trade. Brittany Griner's deal we just learned is a one-year deal. Now, I bet a lot of these stars who are changing teams or doing whatever they're doing will sign shorter contracts. And if you're the Fever, again, it'd be great to get one of these players in, but a lot of these core players or players that have been core, you have to trade to get and all this stuff. It's maybe not reasonable to get them without any sort of knowledge. You'll have them long term. So next year could actually be a much better year for the Fever to maneuver in free agency, and they do have some contracts coming off the book. So I did wonder if their summer would look like not amazing free agent, but a good free agent that could start for them, being their big move, and then it's a one-year deal there, and Kelsey Mitchell's deal, I would guess, going to be 1 year, and then they reassess their reality next year when, potentially it's easier to offer larger contracts or players are more willing to sign longer deals because they know the new CBA reality. And so while it's certainly fun to speculate about them getting some of the mega talents, and maybe it's still possible, although a lot of them are already either off the board or seem to have decided where they're going to go. There's still obviously, Neko Ogumike's out there, Dewana Bonner, Natasha Howard. They're still good players on the board. But I just wondered if it would be the way the timing worked out, a summer where they just get, starter level upgrades and not maybe the stars. And the next year is when things go crazy. And how free agency goes for every sport. The stars kind of drive the market. So we're in the star era part of this right now. I'd imagine that as that part kind of settles in and the next wave of players are the ones agreeing to deals with teams, that's when you'll see the Fever really make their move. And I think that's smart. It makes sense. It's just the reality that they're in and the timing of the league. It's nothing they've done wrong. It's just how it's going to go.
I know Bonner's up there in age, but boy, I liked her game when the Fever and the Sun played, and you would think Stephanie White would know her game quite well.
I strongly suspect Dewana Bonner will end up in Phoenix, given that Alyssa Thomas just went there, but we will see.
Sure. Tony East right there on the Payless Liquors hotline, Pacers Pistons tonight. Tony, as always, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
5.5-point favorite, the Pacers in that one. Again, Andrew Nemhard, questionable the back ailment.
All right, coming up at 9 o'clock, Jol Erikson joins us. We'll talk some Colts, but on the other side, Mark Dykton, Professor Dykton, teaches Kevin Bowen about professional wrestling with the Royal Rumble blowing into town. We'll do it next here on this Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Miner, we'll talk some more Colts with Jol Erikson from the Star. He'll join us coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. A couple NFL items we haven't gotten to yet. It was official yesterday. Matt Eberflus back to Dallas. This is where he came from before taking the defensive coordinator job here in Indy. So he'll be the DC to Brian Schottenheimer down there in Dallas. And then did you see the Texans fired their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick?
I did, and one of the radio stations down there. Did you happen to read any of the scuttle between he and C.J. Stroud? And I didn't know any of that existed.
When you mean scuttle, you mean literally the sound of it was at the Combine last year.
Yep, go ahead. Yeah, that's exactly what I heard.
Right here, and a suite in Lucas Oil Stadium, I would assume. Bobby Slowick and C.J. Stroud got into it in going back and forth on a particular coverage that Ohio State called or, whatever, personnel grouping that they called. And, Slowick made some comment about this is the NFL. We'll call it, what we want to call it. And they got face-to-face, according to this Houston report.
Yeah, another team after, C.J. Stroud's meeting all these different teams. C.J. Stroud told the next team he met with, I don't think I'm probably going to be going to the Houston Texans. And then he ends up with the Houston Texans.
And then they draft him. Great rookie year. Bobby Slowick's name is like a hot head coaching name.
Sure it is.
Last cycle, he elected to stay. They obviously had offensive issues. I'd say offensive line issues, certainly this season, and now he's gone. So, on paper, again, they need O-line help, but you would think that would be a pretty highly coveted offensive coordinator opening.
You would think so. The Texans are one of those teams that is trying to do a couple things. Number one, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, contend, make a Super Bowl, because they're not having to pay their quarterback. C.J. Stroud is on that rookie deal. And then, two, they're in this odd spot to where they're good. They're benefiting from the rest of the AFC South, as JMV would say, being kind of a clown show. But they're not also great. Like, they're good. They can win the South. They can, kind of beat another team that's barely making the playoffs, but they're not. You would agree with this, right? They're not going to beat the Eagles or the Chiefs or, I still think if you put them up against Baltimore,
Tier 2, however you want to label it, Tier 3 in the NFL, and obviously the rest of the AFC South is not.
But Slowick, man, I tell you, people wanted him to be a head coach last year. It's one of those things where it's like sometimes you got to strike. If a team wants to hire you, you got to take the job. Now, Ben Johnson obviously has been able. He got to wait another year.
Sounds like Cliff Kingsbury is going to go back to Washington. Yep. So
why would you not? Jane Daniels is so good.
Well, I guess the Slowick example is why you wouldn't.
Well, he is the example. I guess he's an AH. I had no idea. But can you imagine a prospect like that in your offensive coordinator getting into it at the NFL Combine?
During a 15-minute meeting.
Yeah, you have 10, 15 minutes with the guy.
God,
what are we doing?
How can you get that heated so quickly there? Maybe the food at Lucas Oil Stadium wasn't great. So, again, the Saints, that is our last opening here in the NFL, and ironically, the Super Bowl will be there here coming up next week. All right, I'm ready for my education lesson.
All right, Kevin. So today we've gone through what? We've gone through what the Royal Rumble match is itself, what the pay-per-view is. We've also discussed current wrestlers on the roster. Today, your lesson is in chants that you will hear.
Oh, I love a good chant.
On Saturday.
I love it. Now, will we get any chants tonight for who we got? Bianca and
that was our theme song we played on the Rejoiner here.
Oh, you could get one tonight.
Okay.
Well, American sports don't have great chants. You think of Premier League soccer or soccer over in Italy
I would argue
or Spain.
Professional sports teams. I think college teams largely have good chants. Pro teams don't have good chants.
Well, the only chant that we have locally is Fire Woodson.
Well, that is true.
That might be the only chant we have.
I don't know. Boiler up, Hoosier. I don't know.
Maybe. All right, so what's
do the Colts have a chant? Let's go Colts.
I don't know.
Boy, you said that with a lot of
heart.
I
don't feel like
very enthusiastic.
Am I missing a Pacers chant? That's a great one.
I don't think
beat
we have
the heat as Boomer, repels up to the top.
Shots.
We have defense. That's always you call that a chant when you just defense.
The IndyCar
defense.
Thing. Sorry, Mark.
All right, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
What do we got for chants?
I'm going to learn something today because I don't know any of these chants. So go ahead.
These are chants you will probably, likely, maybe hear during the Royal Rumble or at SmackDown on any given show, but maybe more so at the Royal Rumble. So the first one we're going to start off with is the woo chant. So
Is that the Ric Flair?
That is Ric Flair.
Yeah.
That's Ric Flair also. That's one of the popular hotkeys on this show. So Ric Flair.
Well, that's an easy one. I got that.
Well, so but the reason why you're going to hear it is Ric Flair was famous for chopping people. He would take the back of his hand and chop their chest. And so every time he does that, the crowd says "woo."
What was his nickname? What was his nickname, KB?
Boy.
No, I was quizzing Kevin Bowen. The Nature Boy.
Rest in peace to former Colts safety Sergio Brown. But at one point, the Colts postgame locker room, they did the Ric Flair woo. Do you remember that?
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
It was a gimme 2 claps and a Ric Flair woo, and they all, in unison. That was like a popular thing. For the Colts.
So
there's a video of Ric Flair saying, "Young ladies, you can't be first, but all of you can be next." Anyway, continue,
he also had
Mark.
a famous line.
That wasn't Val Venus's
That was
line.
not Val Venus.
He also had a famous line about Space Mountain where he said, "Oldest ride, longest line." So take with that what you will. So the woo chant you will hear. Let's get back on track here. The woo chant you will hear.
This segment usually always kind of goes.
Whenever someone chops someone in the match, it doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if it's Charlotte Flair when she makes her return on Saturday.
Okay.
It doesn't matter any chop in a match, and it doesn't matter what promotion it is.
I got that. I can yell that.
All right, woo.
Okay.
From my couch, I will yell it.
All right.
This next one, you might hear during the ladder match between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. We want tables. We want tables. That is the "We Want Tables" chant. What that means is quite simply.
Sounds like Bill's Mafia. I also thought it sounded like "We Want Dable." I was
the crowd wants someone to go through.
The Giants want to extend Brian Dable.
The crowd wants someone to go through a table there.
Got it.
So you're gonna bust out a table. Someone's going through it. That's
an iconic image.
I thought they were saying "We want Sable."
Oh,
Sable was one of the one of the young ladies back in the '90s that
Mrs. Brock Lesnar.
That everyone ran to the Walden Books and tried to get that magazine back in the day. Oh yeah,
interesting. I'll have to look at that after the show.
You scan this magazine for me and put it online. So the "We Want Tables" chant, I'm guessing you will hear at some point during the Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes ladder match. Another one, this one I wish would have gone away 10 years ago, but it's still around just because of how popular Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
What? You gonna flap your gums about what Triple H is gonna do to me? Over the top rope?
The what chant. So this this chant goes back like 20 years. Stone Cold Steve Austin had a famous catchphrase of just saying "what," and people would repeat, what he said or what he was saying. They would say "what." That chant has still somehow not died and is going strong 20 years later. So if someone in the crowd doesn't want to hear what the person on the microphone is saying, they'll get the "what" chant, which is basically stop talking. So that's another one you can go with.
Sounds like what my daughter says to me.
Ones you will also likely hear. This is awesome chant.
That sounds very like high school student section.
Yeah,
You can't do that.
Yeah, that's like a very nice chant. This is awesome.
So "this is awesome" is obviously someone's
It's like
doing
with a great, Christian high schools around the
a good match
areas.
is taking place. A big maneuver was just hit. You could get the "this is awesome" chant if a match is going very well. You could also get the little more explicit version. That's the famous ECW chant. That also still gets plenty of.
Wait, give that to me. I couldn't make that out. Can you say that without us getting in trouble?
Holy blank.
No.
And what's the blank?
What do you think it is? If people put "holy" in front of something.
Yeah.
Just un syllable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rhymes
starts with an S.
Yeah, rhymes with "hit."
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
I got it. Okay,
so that is also
it.
again a phrase that will be echoed throughout Lucas Oil Stadium if something really cool happens.
Okay. Now,
Or
do you get a
something- or
chant
something
card? Is this like
insane
walking into
happens.
Cameron Indoor? I mean, do we get, or we're all supposed to know them, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
this is why we're going over them.
these translate to all promotions. So if you go to a WWE show, AEW, New Japan, wherever you want to go, those chants translate nationwide.
And for our
internationally.
audience that is kind of like me and is certainly very elementary in their knowledge, explain Friday versus Saturday night one more time.
Okay.
Good. Friday night will be inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Saturday, Lucas Oil.
Yes, Friday Night SmackDown is just their weekly show. It's on the USA Network. It will be the last show, the go-home show ahead of the Royal Rumble, so it'll be one last chance to really sell you on the matches and why you should check out the Royal Rumble on Peacock on Saturday. And obviously Saturday is the big kahuna. It's the kickoff of the road to WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble. So that is the big the big night. There'll be 2 Royal Rumble matches, 1 men's, 1 women's, and then 2 other matches, a tag team 2 out of 3 falls match, and a ladder match for the Undisputed Championship.
And we looked this up yesterday. Secondary ticket market for Friday night, it looks like kind of a big pacer regular season game. That's kind of how I would equate prices. Think Steph Curry, whatever, maybe Wembanyama down the road. And Saturday, I know it's been a while, but it's like Colts playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
Type prices to be inside of Lucas Oil Stadium for Royal Rumble.
I tell you, it's good to own a parking lot downtown.
It is very good.
This weekend, Saturday, it's going to be
Indeed.
pretty good.
Indeed.
All right, good stuff, Mark. We'll have a couple more days of that coming up. We still have I Gotta Know. We'll do that at 9:30. But coming up next, we've talked quarterbacks and much more with the Colts. Jol Erikson from the Star. He joins us next.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It gets Jol Erikson here from the Star in just a second. Apologies on my end. I believe I misspoke last segment. I said rest in peace to Sergio Brown. That was his mother that passed last year. That was a wild story. I won't share the details because we would probably need a full hour to get there on that. But the Ric Flair reference that Mark brought up made me think of that from, that's probably now about a decade ago with the Colts. We'll probably transition a little bit later in the week. Andy, it will be Indiana-Purdue coming up Friday night inside of Mackey. This is their first matchup of the year. I was looking at last year's game in Mackey.
Okay.
Between these teams.
Oh, yeah. 20 or 21-point game, I think?
Take a guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Indiana's leading score in their 79-59 loss to Purdue last year in Mackey.
I'm going to go Trey Galloway. I honestly cannot remember. Was it Trey Galloway?
I thought you might go Cleo Ware, or I don't know, Renew. Galloway is probably a safe bet there.
Remember, he was the only guard they had there for a while, right?
Their leading scorer last year was C.J. Gunn.
Man, oh man. I don't remember that. Why do I not remember that?
C.J. Gunn's been in double figures for 6 in a row with Chris Holtman's DePaul Blue Demons. That's where he is transferred off to, the LN product there. But, yeah, I don't remember much from the Mackey game. I remember more from the Bloomington game of, Edie diving on the floor and being so good. I remember Lance Jones being really good in that game. But, yes, up in West Lafayette, it was C.J. Gunn as IU's leading scorer.
Yeah, right now Ken Pom has this 79-67 would be your final with an 87% chance that Indiana loses the game. So an 87% chance that Matt Painter and company, like you said, we'll talk about on Thursday or Friday. We'll have some guests, but, you talk about Mike Woodson and you talk about, you need clarity or things that can embarrass an athletic department that could move things along. If Purdue goes out and wins these 2 games this year by 25 points and it doesn't look close and there's more booing around Assembly Hall, what does that do towards moving things towards where Mike Woodson might not be back? We'll get our first answer on that on Friday. It's too bad it's on Friday. I mean, it's fun. It's that Fox game that I actually like a good deal that the Big Ten is doing. We just won't be able to talk about it for 3 days.
Well, it's kind of like the Chris Ballard press conference
basically,
from a few weeks back. Speaking of a man that was right in front of me at that press conference, he is Jol Erikson from the Indianapolis Star, hopefully enjoying a quiet offseason so far. Joel, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. How about Chuck Pagano going back to the Ravens breaking late last night?
I know. Yeah, that was kind of an odd time. That surprised me a bit. I mean, I get that, NFL staffs around the league kind of have that, but it seemed like Chuck was living life in Idaho, and the McAfee thing was a great gig, and, he'd sprinkle other appearances around here, did a lot of stuff for Wish TV, so I don't know. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, it was, you don't usually see someone jump back in after, I think it was 4 years out. 4 years out. But that was one that was like, it hurts you most of all. You lose a co-host on Wish TV.
I know. We're going to have to scramble. Although that could mean, I don't know, maybe that means more money in my pocket because certainly Chuck was well compensated.
I'm sure he was. Yeah.
He
ain't doing it for free.
If I can be selfish about it. Joel, let's go back to the Chris Ballard press conference. And the words you heard that day on the defensive side of the ball changing. Since then, we've seen the hire of Lou Anarumo. Does the action of hiring Lou Anarumo match what you thought Ballard's words were a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I'm going somewhere with this, but let's just start here.
Ballard was fairly vague on what he wanted to do defensively, but it sounded like they number one, I think the thing that I came away with most of all was his evaluation of the secondary seemed to be pretty that secondary seemed to be pretty lacking. So the fact that they hired somebody who was a secondary coach, the fact that all their the people that we know they interviewed were defensive back backgrounds, that kind of makes sense to me. Yeah, he was pretty vague on the defensive coordinator hire, though. I remember coming away from that going, I don't know where they're going to go with that.
Yeah, he mentioned, yes, I think we need to affect the quarterback a little bit more. There is value to being a little bit more aggressive. And again, I think that in my eyes, I think that kind of matches the hire of Anarumo. You laid out some other reasons. Okay, let's transition to free agency because that's kind of next on the calendar. We're still obviously about a month-ish away from that really ramping up. But what did you hear words-wise from him compared to what you heard from him on that topic in recent season-ending pressers?
Yeah, he said a lot about that. He said a ton about that, and just, he didn't do a good enough job bringing guys in. You have to have guys in there, real competition, who can, to make people, worry that they're not going to have a job or they're not going to have a job. There was a lot of talk about that. I think the competition piece in the week since is kind of been kind of depends on what your definition of competition is. Some people think of it as is he saying he's bringing in guys who can push guys he already has, but he doesn't expect them to take over a start. I wouldn't consider that competition. I consider that depth. My definition of competition is guys who can take someone else's job. So that's one piece. And then the other thing is, in secondary, we didn't quite get the same sort of answer on linebacker that was clear like this. But in the secondary, all he said was we've got to be better. And then the question was asked to clarify both cornerback and safety, and he just said we've got to be better. It's really hard to do what the Eagles did and kind of revamp your secondary in one draft. So I would think free agency-wise that there's got to be at least a move there, given how many guys are either moving on or that you might need to replace.
You mentioned competition, and Jol Erikson from the Star with us. Off-season stuff. We talked about it today. We'll continue talking about it. Quarterback, what do you think they mean, competition, improving the quarterback room? Any name, any thought you have, because that's obviously a huge discussion with the up-and-down play of Anthony Richardson.
I haven't been able to get past the name of Justin Fields. I don't have anything knowing that that's what they that's the player that they're interested in. They had the cameo with the Steelers last year. It's just, to me, with what Mayfield and Darnold have done in different places, kind of resurrecting their careers, that might be the Colts' best option this offseason as far as getting a non-Richardson answer at the quarterback position. Is trying to find one of those. He's kind of an obvious one. Again, that's my name. I haven't got that from anywhere, outside my own head. But I thought, you say we've got to bring in competition for Richardson. Like I said, to me, if you're bringing in a backup, that's depth. If you're bringing in somebody who's going to be a backup, that's depth. That's not competition. Competition is someone who could take his job. And so that to me is, maybe we're going into next offseason where it's an actual competition for the starting quarterback job. Maybe Richardson has a leg up because he's been the starter here for 2 years that we have to acknowledge, but it's got to be someone who can take the job.
Should probably turn on my mic. That's the voice of Jol Erikson from the Star. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Joel, let me list a couple free agent names at you. Again, in-house free agents for the Colts. And you pick the two that you think should be back. Joe Flacco, Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, Will Fries, Dayo Adangbo, EJ Speed, Julian Blackman.
The two that jump out at me are Will Fries and Dayo Adangbo. Fries is kind of I don't know the diagnosis on his leg and
broken leg in that Jacksonville game.
Do.
For those that remember, started at right guard. Was having a really nice season until he went down.
Well, and that's why I think you bring him back. I think that a lot of times when a player gets hurt like that, their best chance to get to come back is with the team that knows them already. Fries was playing so well. I think one of the underrated things from the back half of the season was that they lose Fries off that offensive line, and they never, Mark Lewinsky stabilized it a little bit, but Mark is not a great pass protector. So, that spot was kind of a trouble spot for them the rest of the season. If Fries can get back to, something close to where he was, that's a huge return. And then Odangbo, Odangbo had 3 sacks by his, after an 8-sack season the year before, a little bit of a disappointment, but his pressure numbers remained high. He played a ton of snaps for them. He does a lot of different things. The only thing with Odangbo is, I think just as a player, you see where you use him. I think, though, on the open market, there's a chance that he could get probably more money than people are expecting.
Who would have been third on that list?
Mo.
Again, Flacco, Granson, Mo Alley Cox, EJ Speed, Julian Blackman, other names. You said Mo Alley Cox?
Mo Alley Cox, just because, the role Mo Alley Cox plays, I know the Colts, by not giving them another tight end to be the receiving guy, the Colts made it. They put more pressure on him than he needed. But, a lot of good teams have the veteran blocker who can block in line at tight end. So I would say Mo Alley Cox would be third on my list.
What did you like, not like, anything in the middle with Lou Anarumo, his press conference last week? Anything?
His press conference was, to me, it was a lot of stuff he said over the years. So I think the press conference, kind of throw that out the window. More on like the defensive stuff. The stuff I like the most is that I like coordinators who want to make the opponent play left-handed. That makes sense to me in my head. He wants to figure out how to take away your best players and make you do something else. To me, that makes sense. Coverage, and disguising coverage and making it hard for the quarterback to read. I think that was the most important thing. Even over the aggression, even over the blitzing. Because if you look at Anarumo's numbers, he really hasn't blitzed much for the last 3 years. And 2022 was actually his best year from a number standpoint for the entire regular season in terms of their overall numbers. So he hasn't blitzed as much. He's still going to blitz more than Gus Bradley. Full stop.
Yeah.
It's still more blitzing than Gus Bradley. But I think that I've got a story up now on blitzing. I was poking around just the blitz rates around the league. You've got a ton of teams high in the defensive rankings with high blitz rankings. You also have a ton of teams low. Like Philly, it was the best defense in the league this season, and Philly is, I think, in the bottom 5 in terms of blitz rate. That's a Fangio thing, I know, but
and they got a hell of a front.
And they've got a great front, but even that front, they don't have anybody who's got more than 8 sacks. So the coverage disguise though, that was the thing that stuck out to me. You look at Spagnuolo, he's got the great blitz call. The thing that made that blitz call great was Buffalo clearly didn't know it was coming. Fangio, despite, the 2 high shells and the light boxes and all that stuff, is known for making it really difficult for quarterbacks on the back end to know what coverage is coming out of the 2 high shell. And so that leads to mistakes. That's the thing that Anarumo became famous for in Cincinnati, was being able to do that. I think that maybe is more the name of the game with defensive football than something as simple as just blitz versus non-blitz. I've long said I prefer blitzing's more fun. It just is. A blitzing defense is more fun.
Amen. That's a great way to put it. It's just more fun.
Right. Again, my age-old question. Don't be bad, boring, and old at quarterback. Don't be not fun either. Double negatives on that. Joel, the most important question we'll ask you: your favorite Pro Bowl skills competition for tomorrow night. Yes, it is Pro Bowl week, folks.
Oh, it's tomorrow night?
Tomorrow
I had no
night.
idea.
Let me throw them at you here.
Don't they play dodgeball?
Hit me.
Okay, quarterbacks hitting the targets over the course of a 40-second clock. You've got various point totals down the field. You've got a wideout tight end and a DB doing a jugs machine competition, kind of an obstacle course with the jugs machine. You've got a relay race, 4 players, 40-yard dashes each, and dodgeball. What's your favorite one for tomorrow night?
Dodgeball. Got to go dodgeball. I like some of the quarterback stuff if they make a move around some. I've caught myself looking at some old Peyton Manning Pro Bowl run around and throw type things in the past. But yeah, you got to go dodgeball.
I think that's probably the easy answer. I will say this, Joel, and you obviously are in NFL locker rooms as well. Listening to them debate who the fastest player on the team is a very popular topic. So the relay race, I actually am looking forward to that as well.
That's a good point.
They would never do this because they're trying to prevent injury, but the real one would be if they played basketball.
Oh, there's no bigger debate.
3-on-3 or 5-on-5. That would be.
I can still hear T.Y. Hilton screaming in the back of the Colts locker room.
They're the best basketball player in the world.
Literally. They all do. All of them. And then Sunday. So Sunday, do they not do a game? I thought they did 7-on-7. Am I imagining things?
Yeah, they do flag football, don't they? I mean, that's just what it is.
They're
I don't know
listing
if it's
Sunday as you get tug of war, you get an obstacle course of 6 different body types. So each team sends the fat dude, each team sends the skinny dude. And then how about this one? And this fits Joel more than anything. Joel, we have a punt perfect competition. 2 punters from the 35-yard line attempting to place as many punts as possible into a set of 6 buckets in the end zone. This sounds like what Blue does with the Allegiant toss, and it also sounds like Jol Erikson's favorite activity.
I would like that. I think you need to modify it though, and there's got to be some bonus for making every lineman on both teams try to field a punt.
Ooh, I like that too.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I
That's
like
a good
that.
one.
Because the thing is, they do this sometimes during NFL training camps, and you get to see it. And the thing is, a lot of guys look like they've never seen a football in the air before, but then out of nowhere, you'll get a left tackle who looks like they returned punts their whole life.
Yeah,
it's like a revelation of athleticism.
well, last year the Colts did a to end OTAs, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Andy, they had a couple equipment managers in the back bed of a golf cart, if you will, and they had one of those tackling dummies on it.
Okay.
And someone drove across the field, and players had to try and hit the target.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Joel, EJ Speed, Blake Freeland, and who was the other one?
I can't remember who the other one was. It was entertaining.
But Blake Freeland got up there 6'7", 300 pounds, and he looked like he could start tomorrow he could start for Purdue tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, like that's the thing about these guys. You forget, like we only see them in a blocking context. We forget that some of these guys are super, super, super athletic.
High school quarterback Blake Freeland.
Like I got to be honest. I bet Quentin Nelson looks pretty good under a punt.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of Quentin Nelson's basketball highlights. But I felt like I saw some coordination there. So yes, clear your calendars, folks. Pro Bowl skills competition tomorrow night.
If you give me the punters, but instead of them hitting it into buckets, they have to coffin corner it, and you make the lineman go back and catch it, and you get bonuses if the lineman catches it. That's it. That I'm in.
Goodell needs to hire Joel.
I think he does.
Literally.
Get him a job. Throw him some cash. Let's go.
Joel, if I see you before the combine, it's probably not a good thing, so I hope I don't see you until the combine.
That's probably true. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Jol Erikson from the Star.
A couple things on that. mine is always the quarterback stuff hitting. They used to put the chalk on the end of the football in Warren Moon or Boomer Esiason. Used to go out there, and then you've always get like you get now like Drake May. Is a Pro Bowler.
Russell Wilson
this
is
year.
a Pro Bowler.
Wasn't Gardner Minshew last year a Pro Bowler for the Colts? Yeah, I mean. You got back in the day, it'd be Chris Chandler. You'd have Warren Moon and John Elway go, and then Chris Chandler would get out there. And then the second thing you talk of, now I did not see this live. I've seen video of it, of guys racing. You know how that's a big deal, like who's the fastest guy? You talked about it?
Tyreek Hill versus, what's the crazy American sprinter?
Oh, goodness, who had COVID. After he didn't win,
Mark, will you look that up?
Yeah,
the sprinter that chirps a bunch.
He won the 100, and then he got COVID and
right,
got
in the 200.
third, and he got bronze maybe in the 200. In front of where the studio was, where I used to work in Louisville, Lamar Jackson as a freshman. That's it. Lamar Jackson as a freshman raced Rajon Rondo. And a very kind of busy street in downtown Louisville where the university is, and Lamar was either in slides or barefoot, and he dusted Rajon Rondo. I mean, Rondo's in his upper 30s. He's like 37 years old.
I'm trying to think of the Colts and the competition. So Zaire Franklin, Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner. Those are your three Pro Bowlers. I assume Buckner to me would be a great big man in the obstacle course.
Oh, he's very nimble. Oh yeah, he can move.
I can see Zaire being a good tug of war.
Oh, yeah.
Candidate there. Do you think, Taylor in the relay race would be interesting. I feel like Taylor's speed, I know he had a great combine from a 40-yard dash time, but I'm always like, does he really have to rev it up to get going there?
It's a good point.
I'm going to be looking forward to watching that relay race, but dodgeball is always a good thing. And again, I get why the Pro Bowl is no longer the Pro Bowl, and we'll have a skills competition coming up tomorrow night.
Dodgeball just still scares me from gym class, worried about getting hit in the face.
Wait, isn't Nelson a Pro Bowler?
I thought he was, yeah.
Now I feel like I did that wrong. Is Buckner not one?
I got to be honest, I can't remember because guys drop out.
Yeah,
he was probably an alternate.
I think I think it's Nelson, Taylor, Franklin, and their alternates were Buckner and Ryan Kelly.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, Tyson goes, just make sure Jonathan doesn't have to carry a ball across the goal line for the obstacle course.
I can't do it, man. It was such a bad play.
Gosh, that play.
That play.
I had forgotten about it.
No, I had not forgotten about it. It's just one of those plays that you would love to replay things if it doesn't happen. I know there's a lot of
make the playoffs if he simply goes across the goal line.
Boy, it's a possibility. They were going to go up, 23-7? What was it?
20-7, I believe, if he
because after they lost that game, you could say, well, they still need to bring it against the Giants, and that is true. I don't know, man. There's just a huge part of me. If we replayed that with that play being different, how different is their season? It is a valid question. That play is a haunting play. It is a absolute haunting play.
It's one where, like, years from now, you'll be like, JT dropped the ball at the goal line, and everybody will know exactly what game you're talking about.
1,000%.
Honestly, the best thing that could have happened from that play is we wouldn't have had to see A.D. Mitchell throw the ball back to Anthony Richardson.
Oh, God.
Or maybe that would have been
boy.
saved for the next week.
Against the Giants and Drew Lock. I think the
Season on the line. Let's cue up A.D. Mitchell. It's A.D. Mitchell's music.
Besides that's great, Mark. Yeah. Besides the AR stuff, I feel like we will remember the Jonathan Taylor laying the ball down at the 1-yard line and Drew Lock having 5 touchdowns. Those will be
the final Drew
unfortunately.
Lock scramble into the end zone.
It was such a slow scramble. I was screaming, "Get there, Zaire! Get there!"
Save us, morning checkdown. Save us.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
All right, let's start Butler basketball last night. Losers, Marquette rolls into town. They get the win 78-69. Butler led this game by 7 at halftime, outscored by 16 in the second half. Stevie Mitchell for Marquette had a game high and a career high, 22 points in the win for them there. Notre Dame, KB very happy. Notre Dame 71-68 over Georgia Tech. 3 out of 4 for Micah Shrewsbury.
You know, we've said it's kind of a who's who inside of Hinkle this year. I think last night the roll call was obviously Caitlin Clark watching her boyfriend coach.
Yep.
Benedict Matherin courtside. Someone said Rick Carlisle. Little kind of.
Oh, I did not see him. Okay.
Little quieter appearance for Rick Carlisle. And then Chris Denary, unbelievable during one of the half times. Layup, free throw, clock's winding down. The MC's doing the countdown.
Yep.
5, 4. Denary, 1 dribble left. Looks like Andrew Nemhard, game 3 against the Knicks. Wet.
Wet. What do you get for that? Like a $50 gift card? No Charlie's? What do you get for that?
I'm afraid to say the company on air because I think they might be a competitor. One of our endorsers.
Fair enough.
You know, who knows?
All
right.
I like the idea of the O'Charlie's gift card.
That's what my dad got at a Jeff High basketball game when he did it 20 years ago.
Their
That's the reason I
tenders
thought
and
of
pie
that.
is outstanding.
Daenerys' reaction was great, just, kind of arms
good for
raised.
him,
But part of me
sure.
wanted him to do like the 3 to the head.
Oh, the 3
maybe
goggles.
the 3 to the veins.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I
there.
like it.
Tonight, inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, speaking of Chris Denary, I think I saw his birthday too. Pacers, they're favored by 5.5 over the Pistons. Questionable for Andrew Nemhard. Dealt with a back injury last season. That has got him on the injury report for tonight, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Again, Pacers-Pistons turned into a little bit of a juiced-up environment this season. I will be interested to see if we see any chirping from that, particularly when Isaiah Stewart gets in the game. These teams have met 3 times this season. The road team has won all 3 matchups.
Yeah, the only other thing I had, Trace Jackson Davis and Zach Edey, part of the Rising Stars game. I think those rosters were announced last night. And like you mentioned, that's going to be the 4th team in the NBA All-Star game, whoever can win that. So TJD, Zach Edey, congratulations
and we're all good
to them.
With the NCAA National Championship for men's basketball being bumped up from 9:20 to 8:50. You got greedy. You wanted it to 8:30.
I wanted 8:30, but I'll take progress. At this point, we just need progress.
We got to crawl.
Anything before 9.
We got to crawl first. San Antonio for the Final Four this year.
It's a pretty good spot. I've always been a New Orleans, San Antonio, Indianapolis, and then if you want to mix in something else, you can. But those 3 places
that
are the best.
NCAA has continued to reward San Antonio.
San Antonio's a good spot. I've been to one Final Four there. It's a good spot for the Final Four. Yeah.
I like that.
Especially if the weather's, somewhat nice, at least. All right, I got to know. We dive into the mind of Mark Dykton. We do it next here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I get to the pop quiz here in a few. Jiffy Lube oil change up for grabs on that. Again, reminder, Pacers back in action tonight. NBA trade deadline coming up a week from Thursday. Boys, we're going to have to adjust with Rick Carlisle next week. They go back-to-back Monday, Tuesday out west.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll move things around.
I'm
for
trying
Coach.
to think. Last
Where
year,
are they at? I need to
why
look.
do I felt like he joined us at 9:45 out west?
I think you're probably right. Yeah, it's
He
still
joined
6:45.
us at 6:45 local time.
Yeah, but come on. Carlisle's one of those guys. I mean, you think he's sleeping in? Come on. He's up.
Well, it's one thing about sleeping in. It's another thing to talk to us.
That's a great point. You don't want to wake up and immediately turn on the phone and talk to us jackasses. I'm with
boy,
you.
the voice of Kevin Bowen and Andy Sweeney for my alarm clock from the Bay
That'd be
Area.
the first thing I hear. Yeah, they go
Gosh.
Utah, Portland, and then obviously the two LA. I almost said schools. The two LA teams. Just one basketball item before we get to I gotta know. We haven't talked about this. Did you see? St. Louis and VCU?
Ooh,
Yeah. There was a fight in the stands.
Now, was that good on good? Were those two Billiken fans going at each other?
I couldn't tell. I thought that might be the case.
Because I'm thinking, is there a random VCU fan living in St. Louis?
Well, yeah, unless they made the trek over there. So it's funny, Josh Schertz is the coach there at St. Louis for the Billikens. The guy that was getting in the fight, I only saw one of them. He looked like Josh Schertz, like he was a bald white dude. Like you would have thought it was his brother or something.
Josh Schertz kind of looks like a guy that would have some family that would be ready to scrap.
Yeah, right.
It's a compliment.
No, it is. It's 1,000% a compliment.
The other video I saw last night, did you see the little kid in the Tennessee jersey walking up to the Kentucky player? I forget his name, number 4.
Berea, I believe is how you say his name. Yeah,
So
he's a good three-point shooter.
This Tennessee kid is, I'm going to say, 6 years old, 5 years old.
It's about right.
He's got his Tennessee jersey on. Bray is, saying hi to fans after the game behind the bench. It's at Tennessee, and this kid just stares at him.
He does. He stares
walks
him down.
right up to the player who's 6'5", and just stares at him for a good, 6-7 seconds. I think Bray is kind of like sticks his hand out like high five.
Yeah.
And the kid very reluctantly goes in for the high five, and then he puts his arm around him for a picture.
And they got a nice picture. Kentucky won that game. That was a big game. Kentucky didn't have 2 starters in that game, and they walked into Tennessee and got the win. I think Tennessee shot 45 threes last night. 45 3-pointers.
What will the reaction be, Cal, back inside of Rupp this weekend? First time we've gotten that. Again, obviously IU produced so much of our focus from a rivalry standpoint. But Arkansas at Kentucky, Cal back in that arena.
Yeah, I think Kentucky fans should cheer Calipari. I know it got
should and will are two different things.
I'm getting to that. There's a few media members that had a personal vendetta because Calipari wouldn't go on their radio show or give them the time of day. And Calipari probably should have done a couple of those things. You got to throw people a bone once in a while, but I think there's you're not going to boo, are you? I think there'll be a small faction that may grumble. But Calipari won a title. He made them uber relevant for probably about an 8-9 year period. And he didn't get in trouble. He did not get in trouble at Kentucky and put so many guys in the NBA. So I think you'll get a warm reaction. I think you'll get a standing ovation reaction. I don't think it'll be over the top, but I think it will be pretty solid. And then I think Kentucky will win the game by 18 points. Yeah, Arkansas stinks.
And again, we got Carolina Duke coming up this weekend.
And that's where game day is
as well. I was hoping game day would be at Rupp.
Well, that's been a battle I know back in Kentucky, but the problem you have is Arkansas is so bad. I mean, they're just
but
so
Cal
so
going
bad.
back there to me is just
I know,
different.
but imagine if Cal had his stable of big-time players at Arkansas and they were number 9 in the country and Kentucky was number 8 in the country.
They're the only SEC team that's not any good.
But I guess, I say that. North Carolina stinks. I mean, North Carolina's 13-9. They lost last night to Pittsburgh. So Duke obviously is very good. North Carolina is probably going to face Notre Dame in the first round of the NIT. Sorry, that's a shot. I didn't need to do that.
That's pathetic.
I didn't need to do
We've
that.
won 3 of 4.
No.
We're hot. Stop that.
North Carolina stinks.
Mark
this year.
Dykton, save us.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies. What? High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you two punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on!
Little Stone Cold Steve Austin what chant in that intro.
I like that.
I forgot that was there.
Like that.
All right. What is a skill or talent you wish you had?
Okay, so this is a random one. Like, of course, I wish I could play basketball at a high level or something like that. This is an odd one. I wish, like, when we've had Rick Carlisle on, he's like, I taught myself piano. What if you could play piano? It's something very odd, but I wish I could play piano.
I feel like that could have helped me romantically back in the day.
It would have hurt.
That would be on the
Tickle
list.
the ivories for you, lady.
I would say, my dad is tremendous woodworker.
Oh, is he?
Built the cribs that my brother and I were in
really?
at a young age. Built our bunk beds. Built our deck.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
So he can do manly stuff.
Like the kids have toy boxes in their room, like shaped in the letter A. And, we put diapers and stuff in there, and toys, and another one, et cetera, et cetera. I have none of that,
Yeah, I don't either.
and neither does my brother.
Oh wow, so he went 0 for 2 then.
0 for 2
with the Suns. Well,
Yeah.
Like I wish I could work on a car too. You see a guy work on a car and he fixes something and doesn't have to send it in for $1,500.
I think I'm proud of my car level. By no means am I good at it, but like I can change a tire and I can jump a car. What else do you need to do? Do you really need to get under there?
Well, it's a great
unless
point.
you're changing your own oil, but that's,
Yeah, but I feel like that's a step above. Like I am at a very mediocre level, and I'm fine with it.
You're tier 1, and there's no problem with that. Yeah, you can do the normal things. All right, it's a pretty good one. Good start, Mark. What's
not
next?
bad.
Yeah,
How about you, Mark?
I would say play guitar or something. Like my brother, self-taught himself how to play guitar, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't draw either.
No, I can't. I mean,
My daughter's always
drawing's
like,
a
"Can you
good
draw
one."
a dog?" I'm like, "No, I can't."
no, I
And
can't
then
draw. I can't.
Yeah, drawing's
People
a
think
good
my
one.
manuscript's cursive.
My daughter's like, "Can you draw a dog?" So I drew a dog. She's like, "That's not a dog." I'm like, "That's the best I can do." I don't know what to tell you, 3-year-old. That's the best I can do. All right. The best college campus that you didn't attend but that you visited would be what? Like, I'll go first while you guys marinate.
boy.
I mean, I'm going to be heavily biased here. But
I visited Texas A&M before, and I visited Oregon. Both phenomenal
Ooh,
campuses.
that's such a good question.
Phenomenal
Interesting.
campuses.
So you're going Notre Dame,
Well,
right?
that would be my heavily
That's
biased
such a
answer.
cop-out.
We did visit. My uncle went there, and we just took a spring break trip to San Diego, and we visited USD. So this would be the Toreros, right? Jim Harbaugh, his first stop there.
Okay.
Just an absolutely gorgeous campus. So I'd say there. I visited Missouri, actually, where Jol Erikson went, and I really enjoyed that campus. Some great pizza in town, Shakespeare's Pizza.
Yeah, everyone who's in journalism went to Syracuse or they went to Missouri. Basically,
Right, pretty much.
I've been to my cousin went to Gainesville, Florida. So I've been to
See the
Gainesville.
Tebow statue?
Yeah, I mean that's not one of the nicer places. So I tell you, which is kind of like by itself, but there's just beautiful women everywhere. I've been to Auburn.
I've been
kind
to
of an odd
Arizona
one.
State. I would agree.
Yeah, I have a buddy who went.
Yeah,
I've
that's
never
a
been
cheap
there.
one.
I've never been there, but a buddy who went to Arizona State. And he's
Now
like,
Auburn's
legit.
pretty close to Atlanta, weirdly, right?
It is. I'm trying to think
Or
exactly.
like that's where you'd fly into.
Yeah, that's where you'd fly into. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe Birmingham too. It's like right between Birmingham and Atlanta. So yeah, something like that.
Okay. Is there a specific free agent that you want the Colts to target?
One more thing I'll add on that. When we were in Atlanta for the national title, I could not believe just running into Georgia Tech's football stadium. Right there.
Yeah, it's just right down there. Yeah.
I'm like, boy, that is so nondescript. Georgia Tech, they were a legit program this past year. So I'll throw that in there. Sorry, Mark, what'd you say?
I said, is there a specific free agent that you want the Colts to target in the offseason? Because I'm looking at this list, and I'm not going to lie. I think it's a heck of a time for Chris Ballard to say, we'll do stuff different when it's probably one of the weaker free agent classes. I feel like it's kind of mirroring how he finally addressed quarterback. In one of the weaker quarterback classes, he finally drafted Anthony Richardson with what is probably a weaker quarterback class, and now he's going to be like, we're going to be different. We're going to address free agency, and it's one of the weaker free agency classes.
I guess I'll give a name. He's on a 1-year deal, and he plays for there's a great defensive line in front of him. Is it Zach Bond is how you say his name, the linebacker from the Eagles?
Boy, he's been a great find for him.
He is. He's not a.
He was kind of a spot starter.
Yeah. He's more of an outside line. He's not an inside linebacker. So I think he and Zaire Franklin could hang out together. Again, he's 93 tackles, 3.5 sacks, so he's not an upper level guy. But to me, he would be a huge upgrade over EJ Speed. I mean, that would be a substantial upgrade. He's on a 1-year deal. Maybe the Eagles bring him back. I don't know. ESPN actually just put out a list. Of their 50 best free agents, and Bond is number 12 on that list. So he'd probably be near the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I will go at a position of need. Javon Holland, the safety down there with the Dolphins. To me, I just feel like that's such a critical position when you look at how things are viewed in the Lou Anarumo defense. So that's probably one I go with. Justin Simmons, speaking of a free agent that we talked about last year, again, that would kind of be on the short-term deal. A guy that I always love watching for the Chiefs, and the Colts have been so good at drafting linebackers, I've never really thought about it. But Nick Bolton,
he's good.
Number 32,
yep,
is a free agent. That dude is everywhere.
He's number 24 on ESPN's list.
When I'm watching the Chiefs, that dude is everywhere.
Yeah, he's a good player.
And I don't think anybody else really stands out, but I will say this, and it's probably not the most politically correct way to say it. The Colts might have more fat dudes on their defense next year.
That's okay.
If you look at it, Cincinnati had the big hog mollies in the middle of their D-line. You think DJ Reader from a few years back, BJ Hill, and recently. If you look at their roster, they just typically had more of the 310 to 20-pound D tackles. And Grover Stewart, he carries his weight so well, but outside of him, the Colts really haven't had that. So, when you start to think about, okay, what could look different personnel-wise, again, it might not be something that everybody's paying attention to, but they could have more dudes that are just big.
It's a good point. Do they go out and get one or two of those guys
right.
that can kind of fill that mold?
Space eaters, two-gap guys.
Sure, because,
like
Buckner's not that. He's slender for a defensive tackle almost. It's kind of between it. He's a hybrid. That's the way I view him. Is that it, Mark?
Unless you want to say what you're watching, that's it.
Well, Severance.
Have you started it?
Yeah, we're into season 2. You really got to pay attention.
No, what you have to do with Severance is, A, you got to pay attention, and B, you got to go to YouTube and get some of these, these guys put together recaps, these 10, 15-minute recaps.
That's a good idea.
You got to do it because the things people notice and they put together, it will absolutely help guide you along the way.
I tried to watch a little TGL on my phone while Maddie was watching that. She's like, are you going to pay attention or not?
No, you have to pay attention.
And I deserve that. I mean,
the drive to survive.
With our guy Will Buxton.
Yeah, so Will Buxton is. I mean, he's the main guy, and so I told my wife, we interviewed him or whatever. Will Buxton, from season 1 to season 6, you see the maturation of Will Buxton. You really do.
Wow,
so
you are deep in the weeds here.
I am deep in the weeds, and my wife goes, he's a good-looking guy. Oh, he's got great hair. Oh, he's a tan guy. I'm
he's
like,
got the accent, too.
Will Buxton's crushing it. He can talk to me all day.
He could have a hell of a carb day if he wanted to go down that path.
Oh, yeah. We started Only Murders in the Building. Never seen it before. Started watching that. So far, so good. Martin Short and Steve Martin and Selena Gomez.
I think tomorrow night I'm trying to do that Vince McMahon documentary. I feel like this is the ultimate week for it.
Mark, I've seen parts of that show. My wife watched that, and I picked up enough of it to where I know it. Not a bad show. It's an interesting. It's a quirky show. You know, it's kind of funny.
Start
whatever.
Shrinking too. So I'm gonna.
Yeah,
start
I know.
That at some
KB's
point.
been talking about it. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, pop quiz 239-1070. We'll do it next here on the Fan.
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Boys, some blasts from the past here in this Pop Quiz. You know, the answer to number 2, we had him on as a guest, I'd say probably 3 or 4 years ago, to talk Carson Wentz and just kind of the issues exiting that season. He was an excellent guest. I've enjoyed him on radio.
He's good, yeah. He's very good.
He does some nice work. Let's head to the Payless. I guess, yeah, Payless Liquors hotline. Why not here?
Sure.
It is time for our Jiffy Lube Oil Change, the Pop Quiz. If you go 5 for 5, Andy Sweeney, a number?
Let's go caller number 2 today, Mark. Number 2.
Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Tom, we are great.
It's a blessed Wednesday, Tom.
Tom,
It'll be 50 degrees out.
One sports team could win a title in your lifetime. Who would it be?
Probably IU again in basketball, which is so far away, but that's what I'm looking for.
Tom, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
65.
What would you like to see them do in regards to their head coach?
I think it's time to move on.
Tom, I know, Tom, it seems like it's far away, but man, if you can get another coach, you can flip in college basketball, you can flip a roster in 1 year, you can be in the Final Four next year. Come on.
Well, I understand. My senior year, we won the NCAA, so that's where I'm coming from.
Sorry, I can't do the math in my head. Was that 81?
Yes, it was.
Got it. Is that your favorite title of the 3 that you're most relevant for?
Since I was there, yeah.
Yeah. That would be pretty special. Boy, I'm trying to think. My 4 years, they won 6, 9, and 12 games, and then
I was going to ask.
To be fair, senior year, they did go to the Sweet 16.
Okay, there you go.
And it was the washout year, but yeah, safe to say. Not much. Tom, thank you for calling. Andy Sweeney will throw number 1 your way.
All right, Tom, let's get a winner. Question number 1. Four current NFL franchises have never played in a Super Bowl. Name one of the 2 franchises that existed before the Super Bowl era, that's 1966, that have never reached the Super Bowl. Just give me one of them.
Cleveland.
Number 2 here, Tom. The matchup for Super Bowl 59 is set. Chiefs in their white jerseys, right? Eagles in the green. Did I see that?
Yep.
Super Bowl 59 coming up in New Orleans. The Chiefs and Eagles met, of course, 2 years ago, with Patrick Mahomes winning both Super Bowl MVP and NFL MVP honors. Before Mahomes, Tom, who was the last player to do that? Is it Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, Steve Young, Brett Favre?
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
Kurt Warner.
Did you know that, or did the clue of we had him on as a show guest 4 years ago help you in any way?
I don't speak English, so I apologize for that. I had no idea until you told me that you had him on a couple weeks ago, or a couple years ago.
Wow, there you go. I like that. Question number 3.
I like Tom's brain.
I do. Tom, number 3. Who was the first player to win multiple Super Bowl MVP awards? Bart Starr, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, or Roger Staubach?
Now, that's a good question. It's not Bart Starr. It's
Scotty, congrats on that. That's a good question, he said.
Could I have the choices one more time? I apologize.
No, you're fine. Bart Starr, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, Roger Staubach.
Either Staubach or Bradshaw, and I'm going to go with Bradshaw.
Tom, your favorite player on the 81 national title team?
Hello. Isaiah.
Your second favorite?
Tolbert.
You're going with the heavy hitters here. You're not messing around there. Hard to argue.
I'm not messing around. We won the title.
Trust me,
He's not going with the eighth man. Yeah.
Zero judgment here. I don't know. You have Steve Risley. I don't know. Phil Eisenberg.
Riz.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to go a little deeper on that. The Raiders announced Pete Carroll going to be their head coach in 2025. He will turn 74 in September and will be the oldest head coach in NFL history when the Raiders open the regular season. Who currently holds the record for the oldest head coach in NFL history? Is it George Halas, Bill Belichick, Marv Levy, or Romeo Crennel?
I'm going to go with old Marv.
All right, final one, question number 5. Anthony Davis scored 42 points. He grabbed 23 rebounds in the Lakers' win Monday night in Charlotte. It was his 5th double-double of 40 points and 20 boards in Davis's career, the second most in the league since the 1976 ABA-NBA merger. Who is ahead of Davis? Is it Shaq, Tim Duncan, Moses Malone, or Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon?
It's got to be Shaq. Well, it may not be Shaq, but I'm going to guess Shaq.
Shout out to Spencer in the YouTube chat. He chimed in, was all over number 3, saying it was Bart Starr. Tom quickly ruled Bart out of that one there. If you could have seen Andy's facial expressions, it was a little bit cringy.
Well, I was gonna give him.
You look like Bob Knight doing the game face
Good
expressions.
point. Game
in one
face.
Of those
I didn't know what to do. I was gonna give him a hint. I was like, don't overthink it. But I don't know. Me giving that hint, you could think that about any of these guys. Obviously Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw. These guys won multiple MVP awards. So what did Tom get?
He got the first
did he get 2 or
right?
3?
And then I felt like he was confident with the other ones, and none of them were right.
Yeah, the answer to number 3 was Bart Starr. Number 4, who holds the record for oldest head coach in NFL history? That was Romeo Crennel, 73 years old.
Browns?
Houston?
Oh, Houston. Gosh,
was it Houston? Was it Houston? Okay. He was an interim there, right? Yeah, they fired somebody. And the many times they fired
Wade Phillips.
Was that it? They fired Wade Phillips. That's
Bill
exactly
O'Brien.
it. Then the final one, Anthony Davis, his double-doubles, the second most in the league since the 76 merger of having 40 points and 20 rebounds. Who's ahead of Davis? It's Moses Malone. Moses Malone.
There's a very low percentage of this that is smiles and glory holes.
Agreed.
Very low percentage.
Got to agree with Jerry Jones.
Is like a oil man.
He says and uses that term quite a bit.
Yeah. He does.
There's several sports radio shows, I'm sure, shows across the country playing that exact same sound. We have a couple minutes here. Do you think, we haven't talked too much about this, you think the Pacers' legs going to bother them at all coming from Paris? Because, this is a game, you go win this game. You beat the Pistons.
I don't want to believe it.
Yeah, I don't either.
The Colts came back and they beat the Bears the next week after playing in London.
That's a good point.
Back, and I know it was a while ago, but
Yeah, but it's the Bears.
Well,
true.
Yeah. Gosh, I was about to
Pistons,
say stop and try.
Yeah, but Pistons got an okay record.
Try to defend Mark. I think I don't act like it's the same thing, but Rick Carlisle even said to us yesterday, coming east to west is a little bit easier than west to east. And also, if you want to think the leg game here, Detroit is playing the final game of a road trip. Often people think, hey, that's kind of a difficult game. So I don't know. When the Pacers have played so isolated here recently, it's like we make the biggest deal in the world out of these individual games. Like, people were freaking out about the Pacers losing to the Spurs the other night.
Right.
The other day. And I'm like, okay, it's a baseball series. The Pacers will probably win the next one.
And they did. They won by 38 or whatever it was.
So, again, this game will be kind of isolated because they don't play again until Saturday. But, yes, it's important to win it, obviously, because, Eastern Conference standings are jumbled right now. And, 2.5 games, I think, separate these two teams. But I don't, this is a game you rely on your depth. If you're really worried about, minutes and all that and legs, okay, shrink some rolls 3 minutes apiece and play Jarris Walker in the rotation.
Yeah, it's why you have 10 guys, right? You're not a 7-man rotation. So, again, that game coming up tonight, 6:30 on The Fan. JMV at 3, Jake and Jimmy at noon. Have a good afternoon right here. 93.5, 107.5.